what made her such a good
We're
doctor.
good to go. Great, thank you, Matt. So welcome, everybody. Today is Tuesday, February 4th, 2025, and this is the Conroe Heights City Council work session. My name is Mike Wickers, and I'm the mayor of our great city. Item number two on our agenda today is a review of our business meeting for this evening. So we will start with the pledge. Chief, would you mind leading us in the pledge tonight? Absolutely. Will you be there? That'll work. Okay, great. You haven't done it in the recent past, have you?
I love being voluntold.
Okay. Thanks, Drew. And then, we'll go to a citizen comment period. We do have a quarterly report tonight from our, finance director, Scott Jurgis. Thanks, Scott. We're excited to hear what you have to say. Good stuff only.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Only good.
Only good, okay. And then we have 3 legislative action items for tonight. So we are going to lead with item 5.1, consideration of resolution 2025-06, approving amendment to an agreement with Road State Traffic Systems Inc. for citywide striping services. So Matt, we're gonna turn the time over to you for a little bit. I think we might want to have a little bit of a discussion on this item too, so I'm gonna.
Yeah,
Sure.
okay, just real quick, Mayor, on the, this is a contract. This company is one that we've used the past 2 times, well, they came in at the middle of the last contract we had with a previous contractor that we had to send packing.
Okay.
So these folks came in and they've been doing our striping for about the last year and a half. They have actually changed hands. A larger company has just bought these folks out, and that's one of the reasons we're considering this. But the other is, excuse me, we're asking that we consider a 3-year contract, and we can, get in a little more details on it. But what the 3-year contract does for us with our fiscal year and how it works, we can't even start really looking at advertising and doing things until, you approve the budget and we get through these things. And by the time a lot of this rolls around, we've gone, we have to get into the cycle, but regardless, we want to bring them in on a 3-year. So we have them, we can start right away at the end of a spring, get it done, get in, get out and do our thing, do what they have to do, as opposed to later in the year when we run out of weather,
Right.
if you will. So
Okay.
it's a 3-year contract. We have similar ones when we do a trip hazard. We've approved a trip hazard. We've approved, I believe, a couple of different contracts on a 3-year, and it's based on escalating rate based on the, Shane, you'll have to help me out, the CPI.
Consumer price index.
Yeah, the CPI with the state uses for
Okay.
their contractors. So a lot of words, didn't say anything other than we'd like to award a 3-year agreement, which can be canceled at any time during the contract based on performance.
Okay. So what would be the reason to not go to RFP on it?
We went to RFP on, these folks won the last one.
Okay.
And based on the other 2 that we received, the prices were just astronomical, or it was the company that I will not bring back in
Right.
to work for us until they can prove that there's something different. The prices, they're locking in last year's prices, which gives us another year of very good pricing based on the RFP, and then moving forward with and then the next couple of years, if you will.
So is it, so who purchased All Star?
Road Safe purchase.
That's the name of them.
Yeah,
Road Safe.
Road
Okay.
Safe purchased, and they've been buying, believe it, they've been buying quite a few striping outfits around.
Okay.
And it's not sure where we're going with that, to be honest with you. But they've, around the western area, they've been buying these companies up, these smaller ones.
Okay.
So we've actually met with them before on about 2 years ago and had some discussions, but they were new in the area. So I think what they're trying to do is get their foot in a door with an existing company in the state, and they've been doing things of that nature.
Is Matt Holton online yet? You don't see that? Yeah. Okay, okay. Well, so, let's bring in the council. What would it be a major issue if we did go to RFP on it?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I do not have an issue at all doing that, for
Okay.
sure. If that's the direction we want to go. Like I said, just to clarify, they did it last year and we kind of got last year's price for the first go around, but that doesn't negate the fact that if you would like to go to RFP, we certainly can. It's not a big deal.
Okay. What are you guys' thoughts?
What side price differentiates them from the other folks that you've used in the past?
Gosh, I'm gonna try to, this is really drawing my memory. In bidding terms, these folks, when they bid it last time, left about 80,000 on the table. So in other words, the other outfits were about 80 grand more, if you will.
Mhm.
So I don't remember the exact pricing. And if you want to go to unit prices, I'd have to really dig up the old contracts. But I do recall that they left about 80,000 on the table, which means they were low. They were low by 80,000 compared to the next bid.
So are the materials comparable?
Material,
as far as
we
longevity and everything?
use the UDOT spec and the APWA spec for our striping. I will say, what was it? There was a time, I don't remember if this one was it or not. Believe it or not, there was something happened in Texas with the weather that impacted glass beads. Really not sure how that works, but glass beads, and so pricing was really all over the place about that time. So to answer your question, it's fine. I don't mind going to an RFP and coming back
Okay.
and having that discussion. But we would really, whatever we do, we'd like to get on
Get it in place.
a 3-year rotation so that we can in fact, schedule these things better
Yeah.
than what we are.
I think the 3-year contract to me makes a lot of sense. What about?
Well, especially if it's tied to a specific inflation projection, which this particular one is as well.
Yeah.
So you know what your costs are gonna be, they're not in there.
Yeah, any issues on the 3-year contract? Yeah, I think we're all kind of in favor of a 3-year contract,
RFP,
especially if that helps you. Yeah, I do think, would you agree with, I think especially because it's a semi-new company, because it's under new ownership and
okay,
I think I'd be in favor of that 3-year.
fair enough.
Councilmember Brown, I know you're just getting here. We're talking about the striping contract. And I think we've asked Matt if maybe he would go to an RFP on it. He does want to extend it to what is now a 3-year contract.
In the past, have we only had 1-year contracts?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're willing to maybe throw in a little incentive for that, or is there, or?
What do you mean incentive?
Oh, I just wondered if there was some discount if we were committing.
Oh,
to 3 years.
oh yeah, I would admit, we will get better unit prices if we lock in a 3-year. It's the same thing with oil. We'll be coming at you here soon enough with our slurry seal companies as well,
Okay.
doing the same concept. Yeah, the unit prices will definitely come down if they can lock in a price, if they can lock in a contract, yes.
Yes, yeah, that sounds great.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
if you want to pull it tonight, that's fine, and we'll drop back and,
so I'll need a
do that.
motion tonight. Looks like no, just teasing. We'll let somebody else. Shane, I guess, do we,
I guess if you're, I guess this would just be tabled,
tabled? Okay.
yeah, if you want to table it,
because it's gonna take a while to go through a RFP processes.
Yeah.
6 weeks. So a month and a half. I'll get with Tiffany. Well, we'll look at the calendar before the meeting, the business meeting.
Okay.
And we'll give you
Hopefully
a
by the
date
end of
that we
March.
can,
we're looking
that
at
we can
something.
table it till.
Okay.
Do we need a date to table it to, or just table?
Well,
it?
it depends on whether we're just gonna table this and start over again, maybe with somebody else. So I think maybe, sounds to me like maybe we just table this and this one just goes in the circular file and then we
Okay.
go through the RFP process and
Okay.
and contract with somebody, this person or somebody different in the future. It'll be a completely new
Okay,
contract.
you okay with that?
We're good?
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you, appreciate it. And then next is item 5.2, consideration of resolution 2025-07, approving reappointments to the historic committee. So we have some people leaving and being reappointed. Jared, why don't you tell us all about it?
All about it. So we have 4 people, I think, that are getting reappointed. We've had a couple resign. I've jumped this before. That's the notes, right? But we had so many minutes in here.
Next page 109.
I know. Where are we? So you got it up.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we've got, some of them are just out for reappointment. Their terms have expired. And I'll find the folks in the back there. Do you have page numbers on it? Oh, you're on the PDF.
I don't know if you have.
So retirements are Gail
Gail Conger,
Conger is retiring.
and then, so reappointing James. I'm gonna say his name wrong.
Cheecham.
Reappointing.
Kitchens, actually Kitchens.
And Mark Lentz.
Now,
Oh, no, sorry.
will Jim Kitchens remain chair, or do you know?
I don't know how they.
That's internal.
that's
He's
an
been,
internal
he's been the
subcommittee,
chair
so-
for some time.
Yeah, just reappointing Beverly Beckstead, Don Cannon, Bruce Lubeck, and Ken Verdway.
Oh, that's right. The others are coming down, yeah.
The other ones have previously left us, I think.
Okay.
Yes.
So
yes,
is
yes,
Jessica
yes.
Despain staying, or it's not time for her? So
I
okay.
think she,
It's not on this list.
I think she withdrew.
Mark Lentz, Carol Woodside, James Kitchus, and then the 4 that were.
Okay,
Great.
great. Okay, so we'll have a couple open spots then, it sounds like.
Yeah, there's still room on that committee.
Okay, great. Any other comments? Then we'll move on to item 5.3, consideration of resolution 2025-08, declaring certain property surplus. And I think Chief, where did Chief go?
I'll take it.
Okay.
You need.
Yeah.
Got it, folks.
So we're at declaring certain property surplus, resolution 2025-08.
These are 3 vehicles that the police department, they're either old, no longer utilized to their efficiency, and time to get rid of them. So one of them, we don't even know what to charge for, because it's the old box truck, or the old bread truck out there that was converted for SWAT. And Chief's back, you can,
Oh, yeah,
Oh, sorry,
that's okay.
duty call, personal electronics. So we're doing surplus stuff?
yeah, it's surplus.
Okay, have them here. So, yeah, we have 3 vehicles. Number 1 is a 2017 Ford Fusion, and we're using this for advocates and civilians. And they were using it as a cold car to sit in front of drug houses. They were training with it. Anyway, it's used its successful life, and part of it is, money's tight. And we need a new SWAT van, and we don't have the money, so I'm surplusing other vehicles that are not useful to us to accumulate the money and transfer it over, so I can get them what they actually need to do their job. So the Ford Fusion is the least necessary vehicle,
Okay.
and so it actually has low mileage at 14,000. We don't use it a lot, so we'd like to surplus that. The second one is a Freightliner, which is the old bread truck out there that I got accused of militarizing the police department with. He thought it was an MRAP, and it's not. It's a bread truck. And it still smells like bread, which, makes me feel kind of, makes me feel good. It's a little bit for me when I get in it, but it's a horrible, horrible truck. And we have a wish amount here. Good luck with that. But that truck has cost me, I think it cost us like $10,000 just to get it running this year, because the transmission, every time we're in it, because we never use it, transmission goes out or something goes out on it, you can't get parts. One guy can drive that truck. Because it takes a special license, it's too big, it doesn't work, and it's ugly, I don't like it in the lot, I want to sell it. So, and that's the one we're trying to replace, and what we want to get is like a Sprinter van, or, one of the Ford vans. It's a small van that the SWAT guys can get in and do their job and deploy. So we want to get that, and that's an eyesore, and I'm surprised I didn't get an ordinance complaint on that. And the last one is the 2011 Ford Econoline van. That has 6,000 miles on it. We've had that car for 14 years. We just don't use it. I mean, it gets used to transport, the youth council around from time to time, once a year. It's just a bad business decision to have that in the lot, have that money tied up when I can be using it for something else. And I talked to Mr. Gerber, and we can rent a vehicle on the times when they need it and put the money to better use. So anyway, we'd like your support.
Great, any questions, council? Okay, great. Thank you. And then the consent calendar for tonight that we approve will include meetings from our January 7th and 21st meeting for work session and business sessions, as well as the January 16th council retreat. So we'll be doing all of those minutes. Okay, so we're gonna move back to our work session and go to item number 3. And so we are going to invite up to the table. So we have with us from Dakota Pacific, we have Mark Stanworth, Brian Dilly, and Steve Borup, who have been in conversations with staff and myself and others, and we've asked them to come in and give a presentation to the council on some of the ideas that they have. They are the owners of the property off of 23rd East and Fort Union. Yeah, so come on up, wherever you want,
Right here.
Mike, you've got the presentation.
I do,
Sounds
yep,
like.
I'll pull it up.
You'll pull that up, yeah. So yeah, so quick introductions, Mark, you want to do that for?
Yeah, Mark Stanworth, CEO of Dakota Pacific. We're actually based right here in Cottonwood Heights. We were downtown, but we've moved down to the kind of the Cottonwood Corporate Center. And I'm actually a Cottonwood Heights resident as well. So, Brian Dilly, who's managing director, and actually Steve Borup, he's out of town, but Ray Bryson's a VP over construction and helping on the project. So he's with us and actually going to kind of lead the charge on kind of walking through our vision for this parcel. We're obviously getting out just a little bit ahead of the planned code amendments that are in the process of the city, but love to help you understand the way that we're thinking about this project. And a lot of it really kind of entails thinking a little bit bigger as it relates to, you know, what we're trying to do here as a community, as a city with the Hillside Plaza site, and not necessarily direct correlation, but just it comes into context as we'll walk through it. You'll kind of see that. So with that, my head isn't.
Yeah. No, council, thank you for having us, and we're excited to be here. This is a project that's just down the street from Brian's home. He's been eyeing it for many years, and we've been in discussions with the previous property owner for several years to try and be a part of the vision that Cottonwood Heights has for the community. These images here, you can see the property. We've highlighted that in green with the yellow star. It's 3.13 acres and within a stone's throw of the future town center. Obviously, you have all had many conversations about what this neighborhood looks like as you try and rezone and redevelop Cottonwood Heights as a community and a neighborhood. I think we share.
Called out a couple of items. I'm sorry, the lights kind of washing some of this out.
You might want to use this as the only.
You can see that, we can.
Yeah.
Go there.
Yeah, we can see that.
Absolutely.
But just for the neighborhood context, and you probably don't understand all of this, but Hillside Plaza here, you've got the Hill Rise apartment building. There's about 198 units. That this owner is the same owner as the parcel we purchased from. So in connection with that, and we'll talk about that in a minute, part of our plan entails some connectivity here and try to get some efficiencies between the two sides. We're in diligence on this parcel to try to acquire it. There's in dire need of some improvements over there in a releasing effort. I look at Chief over here, and I'm sure that he's spending a decent amount of time in the neighborhood. So we're really trying to kind of clean up the entire area in connection with this project, but then benefit from some of those synergies across the two.
Could you remind me, I think this is is that a childcare center?
That's correct.
And then
Daycare
what-
center.
And then what is that?
So that's a car wash and a self-storage back.
Okay.
So that's owned by a separate owner,
Yeah.
not part of this
Yeah.
project. So that's context and post office right over here. So, yeah, go ahead, Ray.
So I think some of the goals that we saw, you know, many years ago, even before the redevelopment and conversations, was the connectivity to what could potentially be a great kind of office and retail center. Obviously, this has had a long life, and and the community is well connected to it. So we want to make sure that we're considerate of all those plans that have been dreamed and foreseen for many years on that piece as well. Creating a walkable, connected neighborhood. We already have banks and restaurants, and the Walgreens across the street there is one of the highest producing Walgreens in the nation.
But it's gotta go away.
But it's gotta change and it needs a new home, and but understanding and making sure that we see the vision of the community as we come in and try and redevelop this property was really important to us. As part of the redevelopment, there's some characteristics of the road of 2300 South that we wanted to keep in mind. And you can see in some of these visual displays, we didn't want to put a parking lot right on 2300. We want to make sure that is consistent with kind of a broader idea of community and walkability, and making sure that we have street frontage and street visibility. So as we plan the parking lots, we consider those to be on the interior of the buildings and away from the street.
Well, let me stop you just for a second too, because there's obviously a couple school of thought here. There's one of how few units can you actually build in order to make it economically viable? And there's the other extreme of how many can you build and still make it economically viable? Our thought is this is a rather important piece to try to make the redevelopment site of the cities all work together.
Right.
We know that there's not going to probably be a lot of residential density on that component, but in order for retail to survive, you've got to have a little bit of density. You've got to have some bodies that can readily access those amenities and go to those different restaurants. So we don't want to wait around 5 years, however long it takes for the market to come back to where you can justify building structured parking. That's where all of the pro formas fall apart nowadays is in that parking. What we're focused on is something that tries to thread that needle of having enough density to matter, but not going so far that you're going to kind of put too much strain on the neighborhood, and have a way that we can actually move on this sooner rather than later, to bring this amenity to the community sooner rather than later. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And that touches on those points of near-term constructability. We see this as a project that we could build today, and have it be leasable and financially feasible.
And we're going to go through some images, and obviously these are massing images. I hope that's understood. These are not design images right now. It's just trying to give you a sense for the scale of the buildings. We'll have a couple of images to give you a little bit better vision, idea of.
So are you envisioning apartments or for ownership units?
We're envisioning apartments.
And there isn't any sensitive lands, Mike, right? That we
On this site, nothing that jumps out, no, nothing major here.
So did I hear you right too, that you're planning to make some connectivity with the Hillrise Apartments, because I think they have a drive access from Fort Union?
Let's go to the site plan and we can see some of those connection details. So currently, this is the entrance for Hillrise Apartments. There is a retention pond here on the south side of that entrance.
It's really a basin. It's not really an active pond.
Yeah, it's a basin that collects all the water runoff from the entire project. So part of, we have 3 acres, but there isn't a big frontage along 2300 South. And if we cut that up with more entrances, we lose some of the efficiency and the benefit of being on 2300 South. So the way that we have proposed this current plan is that we would share an entrance with Hillrise. So Hillrise would remain in this location, and we would exit from that entry road into our property here. We also have a secondary ingress from the south side, which is by that daycare that was pointed out before. And
Would they drive through the parking lots or? Does the,
yeah, so currently there's an easement that's shared between Hillrise apartment owners can enter here and onto the property, as well as onto this parking area as well.
that street exists?
This
You
street,
think there's an
this
easement
street
It goes
that
behind.
exists? Okay.
yes,
Bings
right.
and Bros. and
That's there today.
Bedrooms and all, yeah.
There's a lot of connectivity in all those little buildings.
Just to be clear, it is privately owned. It's not a public public easement. It is privately owned for the use of that retail and the Hillrise Apartments. And this property.
And part of that comes about because of the ownership. All three parcels, the daycare, this parcel and the Hillrise Apartments were all owned by the same.
Oh.
So we have purchased this one. We're in conversations of purchasing the Hillrise Apartments. And the dreams, if the dreams come to be, then we will also be owners of the daycare, but. One of the benefits to having different entrances and different parking lots is to take advantage of the slope on the site. From the road, it doesn't look like much, but from the this corner on 2300 to this corner back, we have almost 15 feet of fall on the site. So in order to mitigate some of those issues and make sure that we're achieving slopes and ADA access to all of the pieces, we've actually been able to split the parking lots, this being on the lower level with this entrance and this one being on an upper level from this. And we can look at some of the 3D images to see how that impacts the architecture and the density of the.
Going back real quick to the point he made about taking advantage of existing entry and exit points, the one along 2300 East that currently services Hillrise Apartments, the primary entrance. You drive by that, it's pretty dilapidated.
It is.
That does not.
You
that
don't
does not
notice
look
it
good.
really, it's hard to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, so
It's
this
not
is also an
glamorous.
opportunity to kind of, this is one of the first things you're coming into the city to really kind of create a nicer entryway, right? So you put some money into that entryway, you've got shared use. What you'll have, and we'll see it here in just a minute and in some of the images, but you can see the yellow component up in the upper right. That would be kind of a higher story leasing office. So you've got presence right there on 2300 East. So we're trying to figure out the best ways to use this project to help dress up the entryway into the city as well.
Is that right next to the power plant too, that
No, that's-
access from Port Union?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's on
Substation.
the.
Is this the post office then, and this is the power station?
Post
No,
office
no.
is further
This is the
down.
post office?
Post office is right there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
further down.
Correct,
Just see the bottom of
Okay,
it.
so this is the senior home.
correct.
Yeah,
And then the storage unit, storage facility.
Power station is right here.
storage is there. That's like a,
Oh, yeah, that's a bank.
Will there
That's
be,
right.
so will there be connectivity for walking to come through here? Or will the residents, will there be any activation on the outside of the building? Of any kind, any patios and?
Yeah, and we can go to some of those images. We have an image here on 2300 South.
2300 East.
Thank you. We've contemplated green space trails through this portion that would connect this piece at least to 2300 East. And this side as well.
So for those wanting to walk to get to the coffee houses and bagels and such, can they come through? Will you keep
Yes.
this walkable?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're trying to future-proof it a little bit. I mean, the reality is that whole corner, you got the bagel place, you got the coffee place. It's not ideal right now, right? I mean, there is an opportunity at some point, whether it's us or somebody else, to redevelop that component. I hope, because I think that's going to provide good connectivity with Hillside Plaza redevelopment as well. But we're trying to think about it from a future-proofing perspective so that if that happens, it's easy access back and forth. So yes, there will be connectivity, walkable connectivity to the south from there.
So two questions from me. One is you talked about possibly acquiring the daycare? What would be your plans with that?
Totally TBD. I mean, it makes most sense if this is all gonna be redeveloped, that could be part of that. So we don't have any near-term plans for that.
Okay.
But it is owned by that same ownership group.
Oh, it is
Just
owned by the
long
same
time.
ownership group.
Long term for me is we already have a shortage of daycare and that would be something that definitely be on my radar if you were gonna do that, something there. Number two, how many units have you, because you talked about it, just a ballpark, how many units are you talking about?
For this development.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're somewhere kind of between 120, 125 units. So it's not terribly dense relative to, you know, a lot of the construction around today.
And what kind of price point? One of our challenges, as you may know, in Cottonwood Heights is that Hillrise Apartments, are one of the few somewhat affordable lodging. So a concern that I have is that, you know, Hillrise Apartments and, you know, that remain a place that people, you know, those that work
Yeah.
in, you know, middle to lower socioeconomic.
And that's still the goal. That's still the goal on Hillrise in particular. Part of whether you can't continue to operate it as it's operated now and expect to stay in business. There's high vacancy. There's a lot of problems there. So there's some money that has to be spent
Yeah.
in order to bring that up to a reasonable standard. But the goal is to continue to allow that to serve that workforce housing population. We're not trying to over improve and I'll have to raise rent so high that all of a sudden it's now fully market rate. So that is the goal for that. This stuff, in order to justify construction costs, we've got to deliver to a market audience. So this project, that's why we love the synergies of the two of them together. You've kind of got this ability to continue to cater to that workforce housing population. And then this one is a little bit more market based.
The way it's currently zoned, maybe this is a question for our city planner is, will a certain percentage of these units need to be at an affordable?
It's zoned
AMI.
regional commercial today, so there will have to be to accommodate this, there need to be some legislative changes, which is why they're presenting it first to the council to, you know, to present the concept. There will need to be some rezoning, you know, approaches here.
Mark, did the unit count go down? I was thinking we were a little bit higher than 120.
We've always been kind of in that 120, 130 range. I think we just put plus or minus 120 right here. We're trying to still figure out some creative ways to redo a few things to get a few more there, but
So in the new form-based code, this 2300 East, would there be the requirement that that's some kind of mixed use? I mean, you know, one of the goals I understand for this area, which is part of transformation to some of the Main Street area for Cottonwood Heights, is that we activate street fronts, preferably with mixed use development. And I'm just curious if you considered that within your planning.
Mike, do you want to skip down 2 slides and we'll look at the street frontage? So we do mixed use developments. We've done a lot of designs, we've done a lot of construction. There are some challenges with bringing in a commercial component into an apartment structure. You can see all around the city or all around the state where we have commercial uses within an apartment building that are vacant because that activation never worked. It was a great idea, but the execution of it is pretty difficult. In the activation mindset, there are a lot of different ways that we can do that. One of the aspects is bringing that leasing office to the front, right? Larger windows, bigger storefront type spaces, and it also creates a point of entry for all of our tenants so that they can see, you know, where to go when they come to the property. The other piece is allowing circulation and traffic. One of the ideas that's presented in the form-based code is this boulevard, the sense of being able to circulate people, right? Bicycles, cars, pedestrians. So we've tried to incorporate some of those ideas in creating a boulevard presence where you can mix uses. Just to the north or just to the south of this building is the daycare, right? And very close to that on the corner is, we have the Einstein's bagels, we have some of the other uses, so people being able to leave their units, walk down the street to the corner, which is really the active commercial location.
Can we go back to the slide prior for just a second? Is that you're asking a great question. If we were doing something similar to City of Holyoke. Right, so they did redid their town center, they got a grocer on one side, they got shops on the other, so you kind of created this double-sided street. Activation can then happen that way. Couple of challenges here. Number one, this is not going to be redeveloped. Okay. Anytime soon. There's no way. Maybe the hard corner. Hopefully the hard corner at some point, but none of this will be redone. So the need for somebody to actually walk down for shopping here, and it's gonna be really
Yeah, but
challenging.
the post office is right down
Yeah,
there.
but nobody walks to the post office.
No.
What we're trying to,
I
that's
know.
what we're trying to accomplish, is that people don't feel that they have to drive everywhere they go.
I
That's
understand.
our goal.
If, for this component here, this wants to be retail and commercial. Maybe offices above retail or something like that. There's a lot of benefit to that, and that would be very synergistic to this, because you also don't want to shove a bunch of restaurants and stuff here and take away from the magnetism of this site. We don't want to compete with
Right.
that. We want to be synergistic to it. So because we're pulled down 2300 East off of the hard corner, and because it's actually a pretty small project, building 130 units efficiently, cost effectively is very difficult. So you start having to add in a retail component, further deteriorating the economics of that. It just makes it further and further from viability. So I think both from what does a user really want to do in this space? If we could double load it all the way up to the corner, that'd be great. But that's not gonna happen.
This is so great to get all of your many great ideas. So when my children were really little, just coming into elementary school, this goes back a long way, but I rented an apartment in there. And it was an unsafe condition for my children to get to Bella Vista. In fact, I came to find out my younger son caused a car accident running across here, a car running into a pole or something. I guess the point I'm trying to make is you have the post office, right on the other side of the senior center is the library. And what I want to see for the people who rent in this area is likely, and this is more for the council, I want to share this, is to think about our street here. Do we want a mid-block crossing away and maybe work with the senior center to encourage people not only to walk to get their bagel, to be able to walk, whether it's to the post office or over to the library, and really think, I mean, sadly, we inherited a lot of things from Salt Lake County, but we also have been responsible for certain projects that are not walkable, such as the Canyon Center. If you want to get to the Porcupine Grill from any of the Canyon Center, you have to drive out of the area and go over to Canyon Road and then drive around to Porcupine. I mean, there's been a lack of, in my opinion, really thinking, what do the people that live in these areas, how can they, if they want to walk or roll, get places? And again, post office, library are two places that people who don't have an endless income could really access. And
So Mark, would the units be accessible from 23rd on the bottom floor?
Yes.
Yeah, so the idea is you're probably gonna have some ground access to units on this
So that
side.
could one day end up being live work where you're, yeah, I mean, eventually. If that ever transform, okay, no, I like that.
We did talk when we met internally before this meeting of the idea of building those lower levels a little more
little bit higher.
substantial than a typical residential ceiling height. So you do have that future flexibility if and when commercial becomes viable and there's reinvestment here. You've got the building set, you don't have to completely redevelop the site, and you've got that ground floor space that could accommodate that.
That was my whole
But we've
point.
talked about how, I mean, if you really want a walkable town center, you've got to have density of housing to for people to show up. So I agree with you. What I've seen with those mixed use, like the South Union and 900 East across from Hillcrest. Those bottom units are not commercial. There's nobody in them. Nobody wants them. So,
See downtown as well.
yeah,
One of the things, I
Live
walk
work.
this area on a regular basis and I walk with people from the apartment complex all the time. I go with their kids and everybody goes to 7-Eleven. I don't want to see anything pull away from the town center as far as retail and commercial.
I like
And it's a
housing.
very short distance.
Right.
To
Totally
be able to walk that.
That was our thought.
And it's, I like the concept of this, being able to allow folks to just take that quick stroll and head up to the town center and then all the other commercial things that we have to offer within the area.
But Councilmember, a mid street crossing.
I like
I
that.
think it's.
Yeah.
Because it could help to tamp down the speed of the vehicles and bring that.
Do a raised crosswalk, I mean, I like that thought.
Because they're picking up.
If you
A
actually go
state
through
crossing,
the roundabout concept that is being contemplated.
Any questions? I think we've touched on most of the ideas.
so we've mentioned, to me, design and aesthetics are really, really important. I love that drawing. So, you know,
And again, this is a concept. We've
Yeah.
not gone through full plan designs,
No,
but this gives you a sense of the style, the image that we're trying to go. It's not gonna be uber modern, it's not gonna be uber, classical, trying to be something vibrant, with some depth. Not creating just a street wall. That's one thing we want to avoid. There's a couple of projects that have been developed recently that have tackled some of these same issues, but it's literally just a flat top and a street
Yeah.
wall, kind of cool facades, but you've got no character and depth to them, so.
I don't want it to look like the Fairfield Inn. I mean, these
Yeah.
facade buildings are, and we'll look back in 20 years ago, what were we thinking? So I do like the concept.
And
of
we will
architecture
likely,
detail.
we'll likely put a little bit more money and design into this than we will the balance of it.
Sure,
This is kind of the showpiece, right?
sure.
Are we gonna do
And it
that?
will do, for a sense of community for these folks, remember the Hill Rise Apartments had a swimming pool? Because I mean, a leasing office, well, this is the bigger windows, but it's not a place that anybody's gonna go and hang out in the leasing office. I mean,
No.
it doesn't,
So-
but, so I just wondered, for
Go
those
back
folks.
to.
Go up
back- yeah.
3,
Yeah.
right there.
That one?
No, down here. Thank you.
Ray, why don't you kind of walk through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously the leasing office, that's a focal point. We want people to be able to see it quickly. In a lot of our developments that we're doing now, we're doing business centers, people working from homes, right? And a lot of people don't have the capacity to do big full-scale presentations or things like that in their home, but we're building those in our amenity spaces.
Oh.
So having a good quality business center where you can do video conferencing, where you can bring people in, is really important. The other piece obviously is the games, the entertainment. So the pink section here in the middle is really the focus of the amenity space. We have some parks, some green space and interior. Interior to that would be, game rooms, pool rooms. Everybody wants a big screen TV for the Super Bowl. Those types of things are in those common.
TBD whether or not we can figure out a way to put a hot tub or something like that, but this will not have a pool. It's not big enough to have its own pool. And quite frankly, if you actually look at the renter base, it's fairly low on the list of priorities. They do want some gathering areas. They do want a nice community.
Well, if you do
area.
acquire the Hill Rise Apartments, then
part
perhaps
of the
they would have
opportunity.
access. So that's,
One thing that is worth noting, so you can see here, the part of this parking, where Hillrise is really overparked, significantly overparked. That's a benefit to us because then we can use a little bit more of the footprint here and try to get some shared parking opportunity on the backside of this. And so it's a balancing act in that you've got two very different apartment projects. Again, one that is a little bit more workforce housing. And so I think it's gonna be a cool opportunity to have a mixing of that demographic here, right? And it's not forcing them right on top of each other, they're adjacent, but there's some opportunities for that interaction. We'll try to, part of the reason we're trying to struggle to get to the unit counts from an economic viability perspective, we can have some of the shared benefits from maintenance. and leasing and some of those things, possible properties. So that helps us a little bit economically to try to make it viable.
And what was your maximum height on these buildings?
It's max the height is 4 stories.
Yeah, let's go to the three D.
Yeah, there we go.
Down one, there's a bigger three D, perfect. So the buildings in front are 6 stories. Like we discussed, they're a little bit elevated above the sidewalk, so they're a little bit higher than that.
I'm sorry, somebody caught, you said 3 stories?
Three stories.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so a typical story is about 10 feet, 10'6" floor to floor. The first floor being probably closer to 12 or 13 as we discussed. So we're somewhere in the range of 35 feet for the front building. The building in the back varies. We've got a section over here on the lower slope that's 4 stories and a section up here at the higher slope that's 3 stories. So we're trying to play with the slope, maximize the unit count without, putting too much density on any of the neighboring buildings or right up against. them.
That's an important strength, because we're very sensitive as developers to what's going on around us, because we just know citizens care, right? We're not blocking any views.
Yeah.
First of all, we're west of any of the residential here, and just got the senior center and that. And we're actually not even much higher than the tops of what it's just based on that slope. So I think from a adjacency perspective, it's kind of a no-brainer. Yeah. Unless the storage guys complain about it. That's next one.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I just was curious if you have just completed a project that you think has the flavor of what you're going for here.
This will actually be a little bit on the smaller scale for us. We do own some different townhome projects. We've completed about a 260 unit project in the city of South Salt Lake. We're building we've completed a 400 unit project in Reno and have a few other things going on. This will probably be a little bit, especially that 2300 east side. It'll be nice and it's going to feel good. It's going to be nicely designed. We can certainly show you some of the projects that we've done. Happy to do that in a follow-up.
And we're just kicking off design for another project in Bluffdale. That's probably closer to this, in character.
This will be a little bit step up on that,
But yeah, there's some information.
I know with Hillraise, there's 3 newer buildings, and then is there 8 older ones? Is that the number?
There are 10 of the older ones, 1978.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 1 from 2005 and then 6 from 2018.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of
There's
buildings.
actually 6 newer.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
there's 17.
about 40% of the units are 2018 or newer.
Okay. So the older group, I know we talked about. There's some costs estimate where it becomes cheaper to knock down and rebuild. I know they're not in good shape. I've heard lots of feedback that those are in really, really poor condition. Is that still in stone that you would not knock them down, or are they all at this time 100% gonna be rehabbed?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only way you could somehow try to justify it is if you went with a lot of density. I think from a land basis perspective, you're just too high. Because you do have income producing property there. So we've kind of looked at that, but I do think you're talking about going up with a real, 5-6 story type building to get enough density to justify that land basis. So you're right. I mean, some of those units are in rough shape. One of them's been burnt out for a while, and so they need some work. But we think and we spent quite a bit of time digging in, we can still put in enough money without driving it to a rent category that is no longer kind of serving that population. So.
Great. Was there any other slides we missed or didn't talk about? We got through them all?
Got through them all.
Okay. Well, council, any other questions?
No, thank you for bringing this to us. One of the things that I like, first of all, is the expediency you mentioned, so being able to complete a project like this. And then looking at where it's placed, what it's gonna offer, for not only the people there, but for our Hillside Plaza project. I appreciate it.
So Mike, we're not gonna get form-based code implemented before, so are we talking a development agreement, best case?
Some
scenario?
sort of legislative, yeah, we need to work through what that looks like. It could be a zoning text initiated by Dakota Pacific that's specific to this property with some sort of development plan layered in on it. We'll formulate what that looks like. And then, kind of work through the details of that with.
It's not a PDD, where it doesn't, I don't think that's the way to go, right?
This is probably something different, yeah.
Yeah, and we like the fact that they wanna move quickly, we want them to move, that's just, like we've talked about it, we'll do nothing but enhance our town center.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So,
Well, we appreciate the time.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Brian, talk more next time. Okay,
Good to see you guys.
thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to, we have 5 different staff reports. So we're gonna start with, item A, which is, a Highland Bengal interstate discussion. You remember we talked about this a lot at our retreat. And, this is, Matt, are you gonna start or are we gonna go straight to Ben?
I'm gonna give it to the pointer guy.
Okay.
We'll let him run with it and see where it goes.
We'll go right to Ben, and this is with the intent to get to design, and to do the match, to get to design, correct?
Yeah, and one of the questions, I said it was Ben, but I'm gonna jump in. One of the questions that came up at the retreat was refresher for the council on what this project entails. So that's really what we're here to share. We've seen it before, we've talked about it, but just a refresher. And there'll be some longer, deeper discussions that we'll have to have on budgeting and that, but this is just a refresher for you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Ben,
Okay, this is kind of a refresher off of a previous presentation that was given to council a few years back, but. So this started out as 3 different projects. It started out as intersection improvements for Bengal and Highland. A trail that would be federally funded, and then a county portion of the project that would kind of connect in the trail and the intersection with what is existing. So this map shows a little bit of those 3 different projects. So the green, those are the federally funded portions. We have the intersection, the trail, and then the 2 blue sections. Those are kind of the bookmark ends that would be funded by the county. So there's a few different goals for this project. The first is to improve the intersection functionality at Highland Drive and Bengal Boulevard by adding the 2 left turn lanes off of Bengal going southbound on Highland. As well as to improve the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists through the intersection by removing that right turn flyaway that is currently there off of Highland onto Bengal. Additionally, to create a connected path. The portion that we're really focusing on tonight is the 2160 East to Valera Avenue, and that's the federally funded portion. And then to provide traffic calming along Bengal Boulevard.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I thought at our council retreat, so please jump in if I thought the part that we wanted clarification on was the phase of the project.
That's item
north
B.
of- Okay, I beg your pardon. Sorry, thank
Yeah.
you. I'm sorry, I
That's
had a little bit of a family problem today, so sorry that I've come ill prepared to this meeting.
You're good.
We'll discuss that here in a moment.
Yeah, thank you.
So we had the 30% design of this project done in 2023. So this is kind of the 30% design the consultant put together. For demonstration purposes, and keep in mind, this is a 30% design, so there's still a lot of details that need to be ironed out. But this is kind of the overall concept design for the extent of this.
so let me ask you and Matt a question. So people that come up going north on Highland and want to turn east onto Bengal will hate the fact that they now have to sit at a light and not go through. So, and I know we've got, one of the purposes is to get the the bike path separated from it. But is there not a way to keep that? I mean, what is the thinking of removing that? Anyway, tell me what your thoughts are. Does that make sense, the question?
Yeah.
You want me to,
Tackle that.
I can probably steal this one. Honestly, it was one of the ideas that we tossed around and kind of debated back and forth. We brought it forward to council as one of the concepts. And really what it boils down to, one of the main goals, remember Ben said there were 2 federal aid projects. One was this intersection all by itself. And that purpose and need for that was improve the efficiency of the intersection. That was one. The other was to improve pedestrian and bicycle safety through this intersection in this area. And one of the problems that we've identified in this process, and once again, a lot of these things can be thought of as anecdotal because of the phone calls more so than the reality, if you will, of people were having to cross that bypass lane, but they're crossing that bypass lane with their back to the traffic, if you will. You have to stop, turn, face it, and then you have to cross that. And then if you're continuing on, now you have to continue and cross, to get to the bus stop that's a little further to the north, you have to cross over to Highland, the Bengal intersection. So the idea was to give the bicyclists who are riding that a bicycle path to bypass the intersection because it was narrow. You couldn't really ride a bike and a car at the same time on that, as well as pedestrians, giving pedestrians the access to have no but one lane, one place to cross as opposed to 2 lanes. And they then in fact are facing the traffic that they are confronting.
Where is that pedestrian crossing you're talking about?
Right now,
No,
Or
that's
the old?
proposed.
the proposed, right at the intersection right now.
Yeah, I know right now, but I'm saying, you just said the goal is to have that pedestrian access only across one lane. So tell me where that is.
Okay, recall, if you will, this is actually on top of the old road, right? There was, in fact, a pedestrian crossing that crossed here, okay? So right now, what it ends up doing is we've taken that pedestrian crossing away off of a car traveled road and put it on, it's on a trail right now. So you can see right here, there's a sidewalk that cuts here. So we've taken this one out and now we're moving, we have one pedestrian crossing, if you will, to get down one to this bus stop that sits down here to also get over onto the new trail system. So that this is the one they would cross right here. When we talk about a single crossing now at this point, this one right here on Bengal and on the far west of Bengal.
So,
That makes
One-
sense.
and I-
Mayor, did I answer your question? Or
Yeah,
no?
yeah.
Mayor, I also would like to reinforce the beauty of this design. One of the most dangerous things for a pedestrian is when they are trying to get across, when there are cars that are wanting to turn right, the vehicular driver is looking over to the left to make that right-hand turn. So whenever we can reduce the propensity of a vehicular driver turning right into pedestrians, which this definitely makes it so much safer at this corner. Is bringing safety to that intersection. I remain very concerned about this wall that obstructs those who want to turn to the south off of Park Lane or whatever that's called, Park Ridge. What is it?
Park Ridge.
Park Ridge.
So I maintain that I'm concerned about that, but I really approve of this. And again, it's the near misses and things going on in intersections again, with the cars that are turning right and turning into a pedestrian or a bicyclist. The only thing that I still don't quite understand, if you could help me, is for cyclists, I don't know what percentage of those that are cycling go to the north. I normally would go to the south, and I don't know what percentage do, but I'm still curious how a cyclist gets through this traffic and is able to make the southbound. Can you help me to understand that?
The cyclist on that, I mean, they would in essence become a traveling car that following the same rules. We don't dedicate a bicycle lane to cross over traffic to get to another lane. So there's no precedent for something of that nature. So if you're going west and you want to come to this point and turn south onto Highland, you would have to be in the travel lane and get into one of the turn lanes to go south. That, I don't know any other way to change
So
that.
This could create new problems. This is a lot of money to spend that's creating, new problems and contrasting to what's already there. I don't personally find a problem with this intersection. So that's why I'm struggling with the cost.
Can I, so Matt, let me ask you a question. So this pedestrian access is going to be new, right?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
And the reason you don't want this right-hand turn lane to stay is because of this?
That and the bicyclist and
Well, the
all of those
bicyclists
things.
are like clear over here, right?
Well, that's on top of the lane now. That's on top of the existing
So what
lane.
would stop, okay.
So if I
No,
may,
that's a
to
great
the
separate
council
bike lane.
member, Highlands, great question. Slip lanes, they call that a slip lane. When you have a right-hand turn where you don't have to come to a stop, that's called a slip lane. That is 100% for the convenience of the motorist.
Okay.
And it has proven over the last 50 years that slip lanes have put in more and more and more how dangerous those slip lanes are to anybody walking or rolling. So this modification is to get away from the slip lane. It's argued by some safety experts that all slip lanes where there are pedestrians present should be taken away. Because again, someone turning right is a motorist is always looking over their left shoulder. They're almost never looking to the right. And that's where the pedestrians and cyclists are located.
So Councilmember Burrell, if I can, and Mayor, sorry, just
Yeah.
chiming in here. Completely agree with that. If you sit there in the morning on Park Ridge Drive, you'll see that entire street lined with kids that are walking to high school.
Yeah.
And as they cross that street there, how this impacts other cars, how this impacts traffic as a whole, I can't speak to that. But I will say, without a doubt, I do think there needs to be some safety measures in place for folks that are coming from west of Highland Drive, walking up Bengal to go to the high school. And what Councilmember Burrell is saying is absolutely correct. Those folks that are taking that right lane, there's no question that they're getting up that, and it looks like a dedicated lane where you're not looking out for pedestrians. I would love there to be some dedication. Again, I can't speak to how that'll impact everything else and if it will cause other problems, but the pedestrians going to that high school definitely need to be addressed.
You looked at traffic counts on how many cars take that slip lane now?
I don't have counts for I don't have counts for the slip lane right now. Part of the design is we are gonna do some traffic numbers, but as far as utilization of that, I don't have any particular numbers. And you
So
also,
that'll back up people more on, at the intersection. So I understand that. I get.
yeah, you're gonna have a right turn lane, and it's a dedicated right turn, sure.
It's a right turn only, or is it a through and a right? Turn?
Well, there's two throughs, a right and a left.
Yeah, this one is a dedicated right only.
So it's quite a long queue, if you will, to make that right.
So with
turn.
that, okay, that actually helps a little bit, because so they can still move when there's a red light.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, so there's two,
You're not
so
gonna
you
back up
actually
to
have
two
4
lanes.
lanes across here.
What's that?
A
You just don't
dedicated
see
right,
two.
and
Yeah.
then 2 lanes. for
two
through
through
traffic
lanes and then
and
a left turn.
So
Yeah,
that's quite a bit of throughput, yeah.
You know, that makes a little bit more sense to me.
I didn't understand that. So the slip lane is the gray, that's gonna go away?
no, that's
That's a
the
bike path.
trail right now. That's the bike. There is an existing one there.
Can't see all 4 lanes on.
Can you
going
pull up Google Earth? We'll pull up, hang on, let's pull up Google Earth and just kind of remind everyone. So one of the things, you can see the slip lane, and one of the other things we do run into when they do, once again, you're crossing from Park Ridge, as Councilmember Holton said, you have students on the west side. This is also, they have to go across that slip lane. So at this point, those going from west to east to the school are once again having just, granted, it's a big road, but it's only one crossing you have to make. And then you're on a trail system right away. As opposed to crossing another road with the slip lane. And I will tell you, I contemplated taking out the northbound fly lane, if you will, for safety issues, but I got talked out of it by some folks.
Any contemplation, I almost hate to say this because I know how far we are into this project. But to me, with all this space that we had, this would have been prime for a roundabout that would have taken away all the dangerous left-hand turners. I mean, left-hand turning vehicles are the recipe for disaster. And this would have taken away the people that are turning left and the chance for any either head-on or T-boning.
The size and the property acquisition, as well as we are constrained by the northeast corner there. There's a vault, a water vault that can't be touched or moved. We had quite a few constraints. We contemplated it,
Where's
but
the
volumes
the
and speed.
northeast corner?
Yeah.
Is the volume not too high?
Where's the vault?
The volume's way high.
Yeah.
So it's to put for a roundabout, you're looking at a two lane roundabout, if you will. Which takes up a huge amount of space.
Or it could have been, you know, those roundabouts that we saw up in Indiana where the main traffic went under, like they made it,
Yeah.
you know, layered so that it.
What,
Anyways.
what happens to this bus stop?
The bus stop's gonna be moved to the north,
It's gonna move up here.
up in that area.
So will the bus stop and then only create 1 lane to pass by, does it?
I'm sorry, say that again?
So. So there's 2 lanes going north.
Uh-huh.
So if there's a bus stop that's not long after that, will there be a place for the bus to pull over, or will there then just be 1 lane?
It's the same setup right now. Now, that being said, we have not really pounded on UTA too much on this. Ben's gonna get to the other section and we'll show you one of the places that we were thinking about as far as the bus. Can you go to the next slide? I think it was on the next slide. This area right here. This is one of the areas where I would like to convince the bus to put their bus stop. You can see that black area, that pull out
Yeah,
right there.
why
That's
it would make sense for them to then
Right.
not disrupt traffic.
right, but UTA has I don't know whether it's unwritten or written or they live by this. They don't like pulling out of traffic because getting back into the traffic is more dangerous for them, or more, I don't want to say dangerous, but more challenging than sitting in it and then just starting from ground zero, if you will, right? I've had those discussions before. They are not big fans of,
Yeah, I
Of
get,
a
and that
dedicated
makes
pull
sense,
off.
but I just see where it's stopping now a lot of time is people are prepared to stop because of a light.
yes,
This is where people are prepared to go forward.
to
and there's been a
continue forward.
Stop
yeah.
on the, and I'm worried it might even back people up
Yeah.
into the intersection.
No, yeah, it's a fair point, and that has been come across. Well, like I said, we have not had any real detailed with them. Our hope, our quest would be to move them into this area, which is built for those residents so that they aren't driving right out onto onto Highland. The other, so that they can take their garbage and set it without putting it on Highland. or the sidewalks blocking that. And also, you know, and it gives just a space, a safety space. And so I'm not sure why the UTA wouldn't like it, but like I said, we have not broached that with them other than I know in other discussions I've
If
had
they
with them.
don't, I don't know if I'd feel comfortable moving that stop from where it currently is to there,
Can you go
or,
back to
or to
the
the previous one.
existing stuff? I mean, realistically, the stop, can you go back to Google Earth? I'm sorry. Where was the stop? I don't recall. It's right there.
Would be the turn.
The pedestrians have to get across that intersection to get to the bus stop if you move it.
Yeah, the bus stop is right there. So reality, it could stay there. We can make it work there. But I'd really like to push them.
It's a nightmare.
Right there.
It's such a nightmare.
I would really like to push them further north.
All the residents that live here or in the density of the, where there are apartments there, this is more proximal to all of them. We put it out there, and these homes don't even have a way to get up onto it. It would be kind of leaving people off in the kind of middle of nowhere, because then there's commercial and I think where it is now is more advantageous for people who are gonna use it coming from you know, Matt Ship's neighbor or Matt Holton's neighborhood and
I don't live here.
apartments. Yeah.
My neighborhood's a little further away. But we'll take that under advisement as we look at this, certainly. I understand your concern. Yeah, you're at a light, you expect to stop. But, you know, nothing against our friends at UTA. They're wonderful, but they have a reason for not wanting to pull out of lanes.
Well,
So,
I mean, I get that too, but that would be safer than stopping just through the intersection again, to me.
Especially since it already backs up in the
Yep.
morning all the way to Park Ridge.
Yeah. Yeah, morning traffic with the bus stopped for 30 seconds would not be good.
Especially trying to get all those people. Get the right. Boy, it's complex.
So do we feel better with the the slip lane going away, if there's a dedicated right-hand turn lane?
I don't know.
Okay, no problem.
It's a hard one.
Councilmember Holton has a good point that I hadn't considered is people walking from school west of Highland. They need a safe route and you know, so slip lane it would make it less. I wonder. if we
Yeah,
could-
Mayor, and I think from my perspective, I don't know if you have to do the whole project, and maybe it makes the most sense if you're affecting one part, you might as well address everything, but I don't know. And if we don't want to appropriate all those funds to do this, maybe there's still a way to improve the pedestrian safety there. I'm unsure. But
And I would be in favor of that for sure. Councilmember Holton is I mean, I do see what you see is all the
Yeah.
kids that are walking across Highland to get to Park Ridge. Or to Brighton, depending on the way they're going.
What's crossing my mind is when we have some of the old fashioned storms we used to have, that traffic backed up going north, end up on that hill. And that could cause some real issues.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's right.
You're talking about going west on Bengal to then go north?
No, to heading north on Highland. That stop at Highland right there on that,
Oh, yeah,
what is going to be, the hill next to the apartments. If we get.
because then you're, especially in snow, you're
Yeah,
stopping on a hill.
We're stuck in that snow and that would be,
So that's why I think, Matt, it's important to me to know traffic counts about how many cars possibly per hour we could be making stay in that intersection.
Well, they have
instead of
they
just
have a
going-
through, 2 lanes are through lanes. So the right-hand turn lane for those that wanna wait and turn right, there's a big, long right-hand turn lane that's dedicated to them.
How long is that turn lane?
I don't know the queue length. Once again, we are not drilled down that far. But it is I do know the 30% design, especially like the taper links and all of those things are all based on the standard, the AASHTO standard. So off the top of my head, without having the book, I couldn't tell you. We can try to guesstimate.
If it's not long enough, Councilmember Highland's point is exact, that they're not gonna be able to get into that turn lane. And then you're gonna back people up in snowstorms, then you're having people stop in the middle of hills.
And young drivers trying to stop in the hills.
Yeah.
On a slip.
Which hill are we talking
Coming-
We're
on?
talking about the hill that's down here to the south.
Oh,
No,
To
well,
the north,
Yeah,
yeah, to the south, to the
Oh.
south.
North's not changing.
It's here.
on Bengal.
I don't think it's that severe of a hill, but then I live in the east side of
Oh, yeah.
Cottonwood Heights. That's a nothing else. It's just, I don't know that I concur.
Okay, well, it's a great discussion, but let me bring up a point too, because I drive this all the time. So I thought you were talking about the hill here. You take away the slip lane.
No, they're not taking away that slip lane.
Okay.
It was something
This
that
slip lane.
Matt
is
talked about, but they
remaining.
Oh,
got over.
contemplated it. I'm sorry. I don't.
Talking about here, but I disagree. I drive on.
Okay, so is it one of the issues here is that we've kind of got a tight budget for a couple of years and.
So
Can this
Yeah,
be-
Matt, to move forward on this project is.
Go ahead.
But the match, it's $219,000 for the.
And that would be out of your budget? Okay,
And that is just for the federal portion of the project, so that does not include the county portions to connect the trail in on both sides.
Now, like I said before, there is a bigger discussion, and I don't think we've had it yet since the retreat on these budgetary items. I know they're big numbers and I know we're doing some things. I have in fact talked to Wasatch Front, and we can put these off for a few years. is
We
the
can.
point, yeah. And without any
losing the
penalties,
grant.
yeah. The only thing that would change is the cost. I don't know what next year is gonna bring. I wish I had that crystal
and
ball.
I sit on Transcom and they review these projects all the time and increase budgets due to.
Yeah,
inflationary
yeah, we
pressures. So
just
that-
did
that
one
would-
not too long ago.
Our portion might go up if we wait. till-
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we pay the 7% or 6.77% of it for the federal aid match. And that's based on the actual cost of design and construction. But we can put it off. It's not like it's imminent. It just came up this year. It came up this year. This is its program year, or last year was, I should say, and we've been kicking it down the street for a while, trying to figure things out.
Let me ask you this, to get to the 30% design done. We're not 100% happy with the results. Is there another way to go back to a 30% design to come up with something
We,
different?
I always tell my engineers that work for me, never marry an idea. So yeah, we can come back for sure. We haven't etched this in stone. Gonna have to bring back some contracts to have them revisit these things. We're at 30%. We went through a couple of iterations. We can bring those iterations back and just have you look at them if you'd like. And say, hey, those are some ideas we like.
That are different than this?
Yeah, there's a couple of iterations that we've gone through,
Okay,
that we can bring back if you'd like to have that discussion.
what does the council think about that? So they had other iterations that they kind of explored that they could bring
Yeah,
to
I'd
us.
like to see.
You'd like to see that, yeah. Am I wrong in with any others that, I think Councilman Burrow's pretty happy with this design, but is anybody else share my thoughts?
About the bus stop or what
Well,
exactly?
just that maybe the getting to a different 30% might be worth looking at different options.
Not married to it.
Yeah,
Right. Never marry an idea. Or a
Councilmember
design.
Highland, what do you think?
Like to see the options.
Yeah, like, to Councilmember Burrell's point, they're still struggling with, where do the bicycles go when they're trying to go south, where I want it to solve more problems than it seems like it's solving right now.
Well, if I may, my comment is that I think that the Public Works Department has very much heard the council majority on their concerns about the northbound morning traffic, the rush hour traffic. And so they've come up with something that allows the 2 lanes that are the through lanes for the morning traffic to be uninterrupted. And they also are thinking about doing away with a slip lane, which they are notorious, especially with an angle like this, for being dangerous for pedestrians, cyclists. So I commend the Public Works Department, but I will, as I have for the last, I believe this has been coming in front of us for at least 3 years now, and I continue to have a big concern over this corner located on the northwest side of the intersection, obscuring the view of the motorists that are coming out to make their right-hand turn to go south on Highland. The other thing that I just need to go on record, the number of vehicles running red lights is not going down. And the running of red lights makes motorists unsafe and the pedestrians and cyclists. So, Highland Drive, there's a lot of entitled motorists who are pushing the limits and running red lights. So I think we have to put safety first. I just admonished the council, think safety first. And I know we have motorists that think they should be able to drive the speed limit 24/7, 365. And as long as we don't put safety first, then their voices are going to.
Yeah,
Be
the
loudest.
goal is to safety and not create more traffic. So Matt, the retention pond, you said there's a retention pond we can't touch in
No,
there.
a vault, a water vault.
Where is that?
It's right it's on that triangle right there. Where the banner hangs, the big banner. You'll see, if you look at it closer, you'll see a big vault in there. Well, you'll see the lids, you'll see the pipes.
What is?
You probably don't notice it too much because you don't look for those
There's a
things.
valve, there's a valve box.
But it's a water vault for
You couldn't build a roundabout around that?
new,
I'm with the meter, let's see.
try, you might, try.
Okay,
Yeah,
Councilmember, I do want to acknowledge that the safety's first. I think what I'm struggling with, and you've been studying this for a lot longer than I have, so I will defer to you. I don't want to create more impatience for those drivers to be more like incentivized to dodge around somebody or to create something that's unsafe. And so we agree with you on the commitment to safety.
Well, you can't, sometimes in life, you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to another. So I don't know that the premise that we can always keep traffic moving to everyone's satisfaction and have safety. We've gone down that road for the last 70 years and statistically things are not getting.
and there's a strategic point to that because Highland Drive that's how cars move north-south. And that's not
Through
gonna
multiple
change
cities.
through multiple cities, so they gotta go somewhere. And so
you go. Mayor,
anyway,
can I just, let me briefly, one last thing. Okay, so I've heard, we have been from what you're asking about the intersection.
Okay.
Okay, can you bounce east in the pictures? Yeah. I just want to make sure that we're all, now, if you'll also recall, this project has the islands, manicured trees, if you will, for the traffic safety. Go a little further. It also has these enhanced pedestrian crossings, changing. So these things are all part of
is
this
this all
project as
federal?
well.
This is the. federal
Part of this is federal. Go
This is the boundary, 2190 east is the boundary of where
Where the federal
federal
stuff.
stops and the county.
Okay.
So, and if you'll recall those intersections, they're very wide and I'm not sure why they are the way they are. So we've shortened the distance between for pedestrians crossing those as well as enhance the crosswalk across Bengal and the traffic calming that we've discussed. So from the sounds of it, make sure I understand. The intersection is the big concern, not the trail, not the islands and everything going up Bengal. Is that correct?
Yes,
Am I,
to me.
okay? I mean, I just want to make sure I'm on the right page here before I try to bring something back. Yeah,
I'm always up for aesthetics. We could really improve
Yeah.
that. So if you're talking, taking away the landscape islands, I mean, I prefer to see them. instead of
No, I think he's saying there will be the
Yeah, we'll
landscape
put 'em
islands
in.
in this project,
Yeah.
yeah.
that's the idea.
It's part of the federal project.
Councilmember Holton, what's your perspective on that northwest corner? Because you're coming out of there all the time.
Yeah, it's it's an issue. There are a lot of issues here, and that's what I'm just having a hard time with. There are so many things I wish we could engineer differently. You know, everyone that's bringing up a comment of this is an issue, they're right. And I've heard from a lot of residents of what this intersection used to look like a decade ago, and they say that some of these lights and how long, everyone's got an opinion here. I think that if we can dice this and say that we balanced cost with trying to move the needle a little bit, we may not be able to fix everything at once. I'm fine with any progress, even if we have to wait a little bit for it.
I'm just saying, we have time.
Yeah, let's get it right. I think that's what the council is saying is let's make sure we get it right instead of rushing to something. So let's
Well said.
see what some of the other ideas were. If you have other ideas, let's
We'll
expand on those.
we'll bring some of the iterations that we played with.
Okay.
Back, maybe that'll spur some discussion and we can go from there.
Perfect.
That'll work.
I might just interject one thing real
Yeah.
quick that we haven't discussed is that they're taking away the slip road. Also removes that spot where you're basically going down from 3 lanes down to 1 lane going on to Bengal. So that is a consideration as well in taking away the slip road, is that now you have a dedicated lane for those right turn lanes rather than
You're talking as they merge.
yeah, because essentially
Yeah.
that lane comes on, you have the 2 lanes that are coming up Bengal, and then those all neck down to 1 lane within a few hundred feet.
Which creates a real bottleneck if you tried to go through there during school opening.
Yeah.
In the morning.
No,
I just
I did it
want-
the other day and forgot how bad it was. Got so used to going that way. I can't.
Another benefit of removing the slip lane is what you're saying. Yep.
Okay,
Okay. Well, thanks for being patient with us. I
no,
appreciate it.
it's what we're here for.
And then we're gonna move to item B which is now the Highland Trail Phase 3 that we also discussed. That is in the exact same situation, funded, or there's a grant there ready for us if we're ready to commit to our matching funds. And this is also through the 30% design as well, right? Or no?
This is to do the 30%
Okay.
design. That's
Okay.
the contract we presented last meeting to council was to do the 30% design. And my understanding was that there was some additional discussion you guys wanted to have, and so I've really just put together a line that shows essentially what the outline of the trail is and here to answer questions and get your guys' thoughts or feedback.
So one of the things that we want to kind of just talk about is I'm struggling with the vision of what that's gonna look like. I know Councilmember Highland said the same thing and Newell. How, there's houses, there's roads going in and out from driveways and a street 7200. So I'm trying to figure out how it'll ever feel comfortable as an off-road bike lane. But anyway, go ahead.
And can I interject? here?
Yes.
Part of it is that it already seems like the frontage road creates a safety, element for the housing that's there. And then what I'm particularly struggling with is as you start to transition towards the intersection of Fort Union and Highland, there are some buildings there that are in the way. I mean, what happens from the frontage road to the commercial? How does that trail get constructed without us having to take property and even take down a building?
They utilize the sidewalk there at a certain point, because like where that little jog is, you start to get where the church is, and then you have that street coming across.
So let me walk maybe a
I-
little bit through.
I blame each of you for this next move he's about to make.
Okay, so.
I know it.
So I'll just start.
Blame each of you.
Walk through a little bit of so we have the frontage road right now that comes along here. And there is the sidewalk that is there currently that people are going to use. This frontage road is quite wide. I think it's, I can't remember,
It is.
40 feet or something
And a
like
good
that.
size
But
medium too.
basically, and which has allowed on-street parking on both sides of the street, which then kind of presents its own issues. The trail portion of the project, at least, let's just talk about the frontage road for a moment, is to kind of revitalize this. But I think most of those trees have seen their natural life come to go before them and need a little bit of a spruce back in this area. So that trail would widen that area. Put the trail on, a 10-foot trail on that, shrink down the frontage road, which would make that a safer thoroughfare through connecting into this neighborhood.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah,
So because there's so many different ingress egress on that frontage road, is that gonna be, because if we get a lot of people using that and yet those cars are all trying to cross, they're gonna have to cross that bike path. right?
so the trail is on,
Trail will be on.
the trail will be on the east side,
On the median.
basically where that median is now, but it'll be widened, so none of those accesses will cross over the trail. The trail will be between the frontage road and Highland proper and Highland frontage road.
Okay, okay. Sorry, I'm thinking we're coming down from Bengal. We were talking from,
Yeah,
215.
sorry,
Well,
this
you know,
is I-215.
I didn't make a lot of sense. I was looking, never mind. That doesn't even matter to me now, yeah.
So it's a great project now, can we move forward?
That thing that is the elephant in the room for me, is if you've never ridden your bike down south on Highland, this is heinous. This crossing makes me tremble where the slip lane comes off the freeway. And I stand there and I look in the eyes of those cars coming off the freeway, and I know many of them have been driving 80 or 90 miles, and I only have to get across 20 feet, and I'm wondering if I'm gonna make it. So, to accommodate, I've been told that this is to accommodate people coming off the East Jordan, from the East Jordan Canal, or somehow, like, it never has computed in my mind why anyone that lives in Cottonwood Heights here wants to get here would ever come over here to go down here. That it doesn't serve our population. They should have ways to get this way on wonderful residential streets. So to spend a lot of money, I mean, if we're saying we want to beautify the entrance of our city for the people coming off the freeway, then let's say this project is to beautify the entrance of our city for people coming off the highway who live, half of them live in Sandy and Draper. But to put a lot of money into something that we're calling a pedestrian, multi-use pedestrian cycling, it is so, like I said, so it doesn't make sense for anybody traveling in north and south, because this whole area, all the way into, I believe that's Holiday to the north, is very unsafe and very unpleasant and noisy and dangerous.
So Mike, in your next item, are you gonna?
It segues well into
Okay.
that topic.
So
yeah.
I think Councilman Bra has a really good point.
It
I
is,
think
yeah.
Mike's gonna talk about that
Okay.
in next item. So keep
Okay,
going.
and talk about parking. Don't those businesses need parking on both sides? You are right. There are
No, they
cars
have
during the day.
parking.
They have
large parking
They have
lots.
large-
It's a
They do,
convenience.
but why then are there so many cars out on the street?
Those businesses make their staff park on the street so that it looks like their clients can park anywhere. When those sites were approved, they have more than adequate parking on site. None of the on-street parking was required or needed to meet their business
The
use.
Pilates studio?
All of those buildings, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess,
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, I really, that was a really great point brought up by Councilmember Burris. Where does this go? And what is it, it's not really that desirable to go across the freeway.
Mike's probably gonna talk about some of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's, cause I agree with you. That's where some of the disconnect is. If we don't get,
Yeah, because maybe you might possibly go up here and then come into La Cresta and get up onto the multi-use path that connects in with our regional thinking for active transportation, hopefully a way to get over the freeway. So I can see maybe an improvement, but again, to me, it would be more advantageous for these people that live here to be able to get into help me,
The Whole Foods. Yeah.
Whole Foods and this, because I can tell you that if I have come from this area, walking or rolling, this all dead ends right here. So
There's an
people who
entrance in
live
the
here
back.
can't walk
Yeah,
into.
There is an entrance in the
into-
back.
Well, it's not for bicycles, I can tell you that. It's
you
very
can drive
awkward,
too.
and I think that we need to get in the mind of the people that live nearby and try to help them have a safe and attractive way to come in and patronize local businesses. For them to come all the way out here, to then go here, to have to go through a parking lot to patronize these stores is not.
I don't think that's the expectation to get them there. And like we said, Mike is gonna tie it all in, so it's part of the master plan in the city. This is on the city's trails master plan. So we're trying to build what was approved by councils and is what we're trying to get to. So we'll cross that bridge. We wanted to kind of focus on this section because there were some questions about the intersection and what the vision was. As far as the vision is concerned, one of them was, yes, getting pedestrians and through the intersection of La Cresta and Highland safely. I mean, if you've been through there, I don't know how that still exists as an intersection, if you will. It's also to try to address some of the concerns that people on the Cresta and Greenfield have about cut-through traffic. So some of those discussions, as well as getting pedestrians and cars through that intersection and getting them down to there. This is the backbone. No, I don't think we have any intention that the neighbors in there are gonna walk down, find a way, because there is no access, if you will, find their way down to that trail just to walk. They're not gonna go a quarter mile out of their way to walk where they could have gone 1/8 of a mile, if you will, the other way. So that's not the intention. So we're trying to find, well, one, do we want to proceed forward? But two, if we do, the idea was, what do you want us to look at as we're doing this project?
so good point. And before we get to Mike, and to answer your question, one of my concerns is, where's that path? There's not enough room in front of the bank to continue that to the Fort Union Road, correct?
So it's an 8 to 10 foot trail. So if we were to have a 10-foot trail the whole way, you're right, there are shortages there, but there are ways of getting the trail in with just shrinking it down slightly in front of those areas where there's.
To me, it feels like that bank sits so close on that corner.
It does sit close. There's space there, looking at it. I mean, there is some
We
space
still
there.
have a sidewalk and have a
Well,
separate.
no, this would be one, we're not splitting this up. This is putting the trail all the way through. Let kind of clear that up. 10-foot
Sidewalk?
all the way through. Trail, sidewalk, yeah. Right now, people are using the sidewalk and doing the same thing. Okay, this would really, once again, we've been asked to enhance the aesthetics coming into the city. And then look at extending the trail as far as we can get it, and we'll talk in a minute how it all connects. But existing as it is now, people are using the sidewalk that's there. We're just, in essence, replacing it in some sections with a bigger sidewalk, if you will, trail. As opposed, we're not
So
looking
you're not
for.
gonna have a sidewalk and a
No.
separate bike
No,
path, okay.
no. There's just not that kind of room in this to build something of that nature in here, unless you do want to buy the bank. which I don't think you do want to buy a bank.
Keep in mind also that's a bank now, it's a great shopping center now. In 30 years, it might not be. It may redevelop. If we don't have a design for how to implement this, yeah, I think part of the design would be analyzing how much space this would take up, and then we'll have that information. If there's major redevelopment, that can become a development requirement. You know, at whatever point in time, that's kind of the patchwork approach to building these networks out, but sometimes that's needed in a city that's largely built out already. We can't just go proactively do all this without having to, you know, buy a lot of property, and it just doesn't work.
And lastly, just for your, I'm not pushing a project on you, believe me, I'm not, but we have a grant for this. And we have a match, which is around $10,000, but we also have some overage that we can meet in the existing budget to cover what we'd like to do. But this project, if we decided to go federal and chase funds on it, we're gonna have to do this anyway. And whether we do it on our dime, yeah, we have to do a 30% design and an environmental. So whether we do it on all 100% on our dime or use the grant money as part of that, we can. So do you see where I'm?
So wait, let me just get this straight. So the $10,000 match that we would be shelling out is only to create the 30% design element for
Correct.
this.
Correct.
So
And the
there's many
environmental.
more tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars ahead to actually complete the project that we would start with the $10,000 and the 30% design. Am I getting that right?
So this would prep you to be able to then apply for
This would-
additional federal grants or other monies.
Or you would still have matching grants, I mean,
Correct.
matches
Yeah.
for the city.
So if you decided you wanted to do this 5 years from now and you wanted to apply for the federal grants, we'd have to do the design all on our own at that point.
Yes.
I'm a little bit unclear too is with the memo. So we're talking about budgeting $10,000 and you think you already have the additional budget?
Yeah,
to
we
cover
have
the
additional-
Shortage of the
Yes,
34,843.
Correct.
Okay, so let's, before we make a whole lot of decisions, let's transition to item C with Mike, and then we'll come back at the end and talk.
And this,
You can see a flash vote and go on to the.
Um,
We've got a couple with Mike's discussion and the scooters and like 5, 6. will be-
Mike, so scooters, how long do you think? Scooter ordinance,
That's chief.
Chief? How long do you think on the scooter ordinance you need?
10 minutes.
And, okay. Where? How long do you think on this, Mike?
I can be quick.
Alright.
Depends on the extent of
wait,
questions.
what do you mean by that?
So,
I felt
How long
there
is the
was
presentation?
something there. Can
We
you,
did in 40 minutes.
did you feel it?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
we all
I
felt
can
it.
only control my own
We
presentation.
all felt it.
I'm just.
I feel like there was something.
I can.
Yeah,
I don't know how much. I'll give them.
We can come back with this too. I'm flexible. It's almost
But
done.
before we say we can come back, this funds, the money that's here now, this is an October fund.
The deadline, right?
This is the deadline. So,
we have to fund it by October.
yeah, it has to be, we either spend it or we give it back is the thing. Okay?
Okay.
All right, so going on.
Give us the big picture.
Okay, big picture. These are all lines. None of these are designed. These are what predate or preempt the design level projects that actually work towards implementation. But this is just a summary. This is your packet, so I won't read word for word through this. Of the various adopted master plans, dating back here to 2016, between then and now, that at least touch on active transportation. These are excerpts from those plans. Those cover a lot more topics, but these are all relevant to how we've developed out the city's active transportation vision. Starting with the Parks, Trails and Open Space Master Plan, we have this future trails map within that plan that starts to show all the areas in the city that we think if we want to make active transportation viable for the greatest amount of people, which means creating direct routes, but also creating routes people are comfortable on, which means more than an on-street bike lane that maybe 5% of people are comfortable riding on these busy roads. The recommendation in this plan is grade separated call them cycle tracks, urban trails, separated paths from the roadways. Focusing on Fort Union, Highland, Bengal Boulevard, Creek Road. The roads where if you're on the roadway sharing with a car, it might not be super comfortable, or even if you're on a 4 or 5 foot sidewalk right next to the roadway, probably also not super comfortable. So this is kind of the long range vision for that active transportation network. This is what we would consider a backbone network. These are probably regional scale connections. To make active transportation truly viable, I do believe there's some importance in creating these safe routes with direct connections between important community locations, whether that be schools, commercial centers, neighborhood services, shops, things like that. I think these are key to establish, and then you fill these in, the gaps in this, in the neighborhoods with the neighborhood byway concept. So you take the smaller byways to get to the major backbones, and now you have this viable active transportation network that reasonably connects points throughout the city and may incentivize some people to actually use them that wouldn't today. But when we talk more regionally, focusing on that Highland Drive portion of it that I highlighted, kind of hard to see. You can take a step back and look and see kind of the network of active transportation we've got planned. You've got the East Jordan Canal that connects there. You've got an I-215, adjacent urban trail that's actually been planned and is on a project list. This was funded by Holiday City, but they did a study to connect Knutson Park to Highland Drive via a grade separated pedestrian trail along the I-215 corridor. That then connects into the Big Cottonwood Trail that also, dumps into Knutson Park, which is where the I-215 trail would pop or would start. That Big Cottonwood Trail then connects to the mouth of the canyon and Wasatch Boulevard, which UDOT has planned for a shared use path along Wasatch Boulevard. So when you take a step back and you look, this might be 40 years from now, but there's a vision in place now for a grade separated active transportation network that can feasibly connect Little Cottonwood Canyon to Big Cottonwood Canyon to Knutson Park to the corporate center to Highland Drive to the East Jordan Canal. If a cohesive trail ever exists along Highland and Fort Union into those areas, all without absent intersection crossings and things like that, interfering with cars and having to face those conflict points. Certainly there are issues. The interchange is a major issue. It's not easy to get through there. There's not a great way to do it. So we have some other plans that have looked at that as well. I'll just scroll through these quick. The bicycle and trails master plan predates the Parks, Trails and Open Space master plan. So there is some redundancy here, but same thing. The vision in all these plans is, hey, let's create a viable, safe, usable, inviting active transportation network and focus those along the busy corridors. That becomes the most effective way for people to viably travel from place to place, in a quick manner. I think all of these plans do a pretty good job of acknowledging how hard that is to implement as well. And that's another key element of this. Putting lines on a plan is fairly easy to do, and actually implementing that is magnitude. It's more difficult in terms of cost and retrofit of these areas. To do this, you need to design trails to identify how much right of way it's going to take. And then, if that takes more right of way than a road currently has, then you need to identify strategies to either acquire that right of way or establish cross sections or requirements that trigger when property redevelops. There's no one size fits all approach to doing this. So our approach has been, hey, if there's funds available that can really save us money on feasibility and design, let's get those done now so we know what we're up against. Spending $10,000 to know what the constraints are is, to try to forward this plan seemed to be more worth it than jumping right into a $500,000 construction project where you run into these issues and that becomes a different issue. I'll keep scrolling through. The Fort Union area master plan contemplated the same kind of thing on Fort Union Boulevard. So, and this is an example of the Fort Union master plan was done, and it created these kind of visual cross sections for what that could look like, accommodating travel lanes and medians, and it's hard to see, a grade separated bike lane and sidewalks and what that could look like. We then had to take this and in order to try to implement this, scale this in reality, which the reality is there are power poles and major constraints along here, which led into the transportation master plan, which is a step closer to implementation, where not only did we analyze, the road classification type and traffic generation and things like that, but we also created what codified cross sections that we can now use when properties are redeveloping. And that includes a Fort Union specific cross section that's been more tailored to the power poles and the constraints that exist there. So you'll see the cross section in the Fort Union plan doesn't look quite the same as the actual cross section we developed. And that's because we've gone through that process of trying to figure out what this looks like. Real world example on Fort Union is the two multifamily projects that developed across from Mount View Park and by the fire station. This plan was in place when those developments happened. That was substantial increase in intensity of development from old single family homes to multifamily commercial type projects. So we required property dedication and installation of this right of way cross section when those projects happen. We then went in after the fact and said, hey, we have these two little stubs of this. What if we connect the four properties in the middle? And when we got corridor preservation money to acquire land, and then UDOT money to actually build those trail improvements. Now, it still looks a little silly in the grand scheme of things because it's just this one little stretch that dead ends. The point is there was an opportunity there. We piggybacked off of the developers that installed those at their cost, connected that network, hopefully setting the precedent in the town that as other properties develop or as these become more prioritized in the future, we'll continue to work on this. I think the big takeaway of all this is in a vacuum, the questions of what's the point of this Highland Drive Trail are valid. But when you take a step back and look at the whole city master plan, it's one component of that overall regional and citywide vision. Because you're right, Councilmember Burrell, someone in that neighborhood may not go out to Highland Drive and use that trail to get down to Whole Foods. But someone that's at Knudsen Park, knowing there's, or in the corporate center, knowing there's a trail, they may take a more leisurely bike ride and, cross over the East Jordan Canal and start to use that as an actual means of transportation.
The East Jordan Canal doesn't put you off.
So that's the other point. We've got.
I don't think we want to encourage people to ride underneath the I-215 and past all those slip lanes. It's
Right.
extremely dangerous.
So the East Jordan Canal feasibility study, as you remember, we presented this a couple months ago. Kind of came to that similar conclusion. It's really hard without substantial, millions of dollars of reconfiguration of that interchange to make that safe for active transportation. So we've identified this canal crossing location as a potential grade separated, dedicated trail crossing that spans over the top of I-215. That's trail only, connects into the canal in Murray City and then connects up into Holiday's planned I-215 trail that then connects back into our city at 2300 East at Knudsen Park within the corporate center. And then you can start to see how this network comes together.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for pulling this up because this does illustrate the very point if we are doing these things going out into the future over the next 10 and 40 years, this will become not, once this is completed, anybody wanting to get up this way is going to avoid this like the plague. So to spend a lot of money on a multi-use path through this area, people are, once they know they can come over this way and get across, it's a better aesthetic experience, it's more safe. So, and if you are wanting to get from this area across, then we need to focus on the passage here and how people can, because we already have people that are coming across when they're using the intersection here, not this section up here.
I think that's a valid point, and I think part of the design process would be how do you interface this trail design and connect it to the neighborhood and these plans, these other master plans we have.
Well, and I would also like to urge the council to have the subcommittee on active transportation at the table when we have these kind of discussions. These are the things they are focused on. They are meeting regularly, understanding where our residents need to get through. And I urge the council and the staff, when you're planning these discussions, that we have someone representing the subcommittee on active transportation at the table.
Okay.
So that's the regional
that-
picture.
Okay,
Again, this is 40, 50, 60 years. I think the example, one of our Parks, Trails and Open Space Committee members uses Bruce Jorgensen. Used to be a landscape architect. He talks often about the Parley's Trail system up by I-80. He said that was a line on a plan, 30, 40 years ago. No one ever thought it would happen. And then it just stayed on that plan and momentum picked up and now it's in. So that's kind of the planning approach is, hey, yeah, in today's, if you look at it in only today's configuration, maybe some of these are a little concerning or maybe don't seem worth it. But if you look at that long range vision, there is a vision there and a reason for it.
so the $10,000 match makes a little bit more sense to me. Councilmember Newell and Councilmember Highland, I want your opinion and Councilmember Burrell as well, whether or not you think that's a good use of funds to get to a 30% design so we can kind of determine whether we go forward with more, but it does make more sense to me seeing the overall picture. What are your thoughts?
No, it's better now than later because of the cost. And that's what I'm kind of going through my head. I just hate to see us go down the road and end up costing so much more money. And lose out on that opportunity for the grant.
Councilmember Burrell, are your thoughts?
Well, as tight as money is, and as great a need as there is to create safety for active transportation where it's going to be utilized, I cannot support the core concept that has been presented to me today. So I do not support moving this forward.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Highland.
I don't want to encourage a lot of pedestrian bike traffic to go up on that 215 interchange. I do want to beautify the entrance to our city.
So we can take that point and because I agree with you and ask for the design to come up with a solution to not do that.
Well,
correct?
this design we're contemplating does not go under or connect. It will connect to what Mike and his group have been working on, that second phase of the East Jordan.
Right.
It does not cross,
It's not a
You get there
solution
and
to
you
go
hang a
across
left
or
and
keep
yeah,
going down.
yeah.
This is the only
This
real
is-
connection would be to the East Jordan Canal
correct.
Trail.
Well, that's not what you're showing us. If you pull the diagram back up, you're showing us this multi-use path that goes north to the edge of the slip lane onto coming off of the I-215.
That, Councilmember Burrell, that is just a line on a piece of paper that says the limits of this job go from this point to this point. That's all it is. There's nothing, we haven't gone anywhere with it other than come to you and say, would you like us to proceed forward?
So I guess, certainly I concur with Councilmember Highland that I want the entrance to our city to be beautiful. But there's a far stretch of making a 10-foot multi-use path along the eastern side of the frontage road than to simply beautify with some trees. And I think where we need to really think about is the intersection. Is it La Cresta? Is that the name of the intersection? It's to help people who live to the east get across safely across Highland and get over to the East Jordan Canal Trail, but not utilizing the section that is shown in all the diagrams that goes on Highland, again, from the intersection.
So their clarification was this is just to get to the before
It doesn't
that.
go to-
So it doesn't go over the slip lane, it doesn't go past
I
it
know,
or over
I-
across the street. So my question is, so Councilmember Highland, your thoughts, we already have Councilmember Burrell's opinion, what are your thoughts?
Move a yes or no
Yes.
between you.
I guess I still don't understand after Matt Ship's comment that are you saying that we could use these monies to design something that would serve the active transportation community that does not look like what you're currently showing me, but affects that area? Let's say a swath, west of Highland and east of Highland, can we do a redesign and move something like that forward?
We haven't done a design. That's the point. There is no design. There is nothing here. This is a limit.
This
The-
is the start.
The grant goes from this point to this point. That's all we're showing. That is what the grant is for.
Connection has to be made from those 2 points though, because of the way the grant was.
The grant is written
So
for that
it's, the
stretch.
grant is funded, so that this is, I think, important, to go from the northerly point next to I-215 southward to Fort Union Boulevard.
That's inaccurate. What we're saying is we want to make these connections. What we've identified in our plans as the connection point is the grade separated crossing across I-215. So the design will look at how do we get this trail along Highland Drive connected into that other planned trail system.
So can these monies be applied to making a plan that gets the pedestrians and cyclists over to the? Could you bring this diagram up? I don't want there to be.
I think it looks at the La Cresta intersection, right?
Yes.
Yes.
It's to go from the La Cresta traffic lit intersection diagonally, you could say, over to the bridge, the utility bridge turned into a pedestrian
Through the
bridge.
neighborhood, yes.
Okay, so my objection, I am all for 30% design. But if it's all based on going from here to here, then I cannot support it. If on the other hand, it can
That median.
go from here, it can help people to get through here and get up to here, or just to get up
This is just.
and to fund, you know. Does that make sense? I thought I just heard Jerry Gerber say it has to start at this northerly
What was
point.
the scope of the grant?
Those are the limits of the grant are from those points that we've laid out. From the north to the south. That's the limit of the grant that takes into account a preliminary design for that section based on the trail adjacent to Highland Drive. That's the way the grant was written and that's the way the grant was approved.
I think what Mike is saying is that's not the end of the trail system. That's just where the grant was approved to study where those from point A to point B to eventually connect up through the neighborhood and up to the
So
crossing.
we're not committing to doing anything other than the $10,000.
Other than the 30%
See what
design.
can be done, see what the possibilities are.
But
Now we'll look at the La Cresta intersection as well in terms of crossing at all points there to see
Yeah,
how
there'll
do you
be-
interface active transportation and pedestrian users with that busy double awkward intersection, which has long been a need to look at the safety in that intersection. This helps look at that in terms of active transportation viability through that area.
I mean, the
Councilmember Perez.
boy that was struck in the crosswalk a few years ago, I believe was crossing here. Where the cars are, it was either here or here. It was the on-ramp for the motor
Yeah,
vehicles.
that's.
So, you know, to only focus on the west side of the road. I know I'm getting redundant, but I think this is an important, you know, I need to know what I'm signing up for here when we talk about the $10,000. I mean,
I can see why spending the money to create a design could expose some additional things that we might be able to consider in the future, and we're not committing to implementation.
Right.
We are talking about a design that may help us improve all of that area by starting in this place. So for that reason, I could support it.
Okay, there's the majority. Let's move forward.
okay.
Thank you. Those are all honestly great thoughts and appreciate your.
So we have the contract on for next council. Is that good?
Perfect,
Okay.
perfect. Okay, item D, Chief Russo, electric scooters and bicycle proposed ordinance. Yep, 2.5 minutes. Oh, wait, what do you need? 10?
I'll make it into whatever you want.
I think we've all looked at it, but Ken, no, go ahead.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
You've seen this before. I came to you in December and we talked about the need for,
I believe that was the first week in January.
was it the first week in January?
Yes, it was the first week in January because I was absent.
I
The only year it was like an
stand
absent
corrected.
time.
Okay, so the first week in January, when you were not here, we have a need to address scooter safety in the city. We initially talked about e-bikes as well, but it became too complicated, so I narrowed the focus to simply electric scooters. With that, I gave you, and we had a long discussion about various types of items that could go into a potential ordinance and gave me your feedback. The takeaway from that was that you were concerned about travel areas, rules, safety, equipment, parking. With that, we found similar ordinances, one even actually in Midvale, that seems to address all these issues. And we've pirated that, which was sent out to you for your review. With that, I don't want to go read the entire ordinance unless you'd like me to, but basically it talks about safety equipment.
Yeah, we read, you don't have to read it. Yeah, hit the points, chief. Yep. Yeah, hit
Okay,
the points.
well, basically, if you've read it, I'm here to take any feedback, concerns that you have, so we can tweak it, and if you desire, we can move it forward for adoption.
I have a couple of points.
Okay,
Under the rules of operation, letter E, it says the e-scooters may not be on on streets greater than 35 miles per hour. Just semantics. It seems like it should be the speed limit of 35 miles per hour or less. So you're anticipating they can be on a road that's 35 miles an hour, right?
yes, so, and yeah, that is correct.
So just the semantics there probably need to be fixed. I'd like to know why an e-scooter must yield the right of way to a bicycle. What's the reasoning? That's the letter F, the next one down.
Okay. And what was your question? I'm sorry.
Why would an e-scooter need to yield the right of way to a bicycle?
I think because cars are required to now,
Yeah.
right?
Are they?
Yeah, they are, and so it follows the same set of rules.
Okay. And my only last comment is letter I. Helmets are strongly recommended for all riders. Would we make helmets required for riders under 18?
I would like to. I
would
love that
prefer
part. We had that discussion in the ordinance that we reviewed before, or that we took from Midvale. It said strongly recommended, but we had this discussion, and truly for you know, if you ride a motorcycle, for instance, the law requires you to have a helmet. When I talked to the people at Midvale, I think that they took that out, and here's why: because you can't ride a motorcycle at 8. You can ride a scooter if you're 8 years or older. And the reason they did that is because so many people have bought their little kids electric scooters and they drive on the sidewalks and so forth. And they didn't like the idea of mandating the helmet. I think it's a good idea. I think you're foolish to not have a helmet anytime 18 or over. But I'll leave that decision to you. My only question is to Shane: can we legally mandate that?
Yeah, that was my question.
In
If
this
it's legal, if we
context.
can legally mandate it. Any thoughts, Shane?
I'll have to look into that.
Well, we don't mandate it for bicycles, do we?
No.
So why would we mandate it for scooters?
So minors don't have to wear a helmet
No.
on their bike?
Mm-mm,
Oh,
just on motorcycles.
I think the difference is once it's powered, if it's man powered versus a
Fast.
motor powered, that would be a mechanism for us to be able to mandate
I
that.
mean, don't get me wrong, I'm all about helmets for all of us, even when you're on a non-motorized. So it's not that I'm anti-helmet, I'm just bringing the question up. We don't mandate it for electric bicycles and any age riding an electric bicycle. Unless there's scooters that go more than 28 miles an hour, maybe Chief can tell me, are there e-scooters that go, because just like with e-bikes, there's 3 categories of e-bikes, and then there are the ones that go more than 28 miles an hour, and we're no longer talking really about e-bikes, we're talking about mopeds and motorcycles. So I'm just wondering with scooters, are there scooters that go more than the 28 miles an hour?
There are, and you're right about the classifications. However, that's what they're geared for. But that doesn't mean that they don't go faster and they can't be modified to go faster, and they are. It's not uncommon to see scooters go much faster than that, so.
Can we explore it to see if it's possible to mandate it for minors? You're going that fast, you're going past driveways, you're going past.
They're more prone to
they're
crash.
just- Yeah, they're
That's
just.
experience.
I-
Yeah, I would love to know that too. I'd love to know if legally, Shane, if you could do some research for us.
I love that too.
For
If it's legal, I would urge you to support that.
Okay.
Here's why. I've done this for over 40 years, and I have never had a motorcycle accident with a helmet where they died, ever. They happen, but I've never experienced it. I sure have seen a lot of fatalities where they.
Don't have one.
Mhm.
And it takes very little, if you remember Robbie Friedstone when he fell off the back of that truck
Mhm.
going 5 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. It doesn't take a lot of speed.
Mhm.
It does, and,
It doesn't.
yeah.
Remember, minors don't have so control over their own lives, and so I would like to mandate that.
Exactly.
Like, so the only question is the legality, and we will look into that,
Thank you.
as I understand it, but there's no objection to the helmet if it's legal, yes?
Yeah,
Is
Yes,
that what I?
at least for minors.
for minors.
Well, I want to hear legally and other, I'm not gonna weigh in yes or no. I want
Okay.
more information.
Steve, I know you've gone to a lot of work. Thanks for,
Yes,
helping us with
it's-
time,
it's
but I think it looks, I think we're on the right road.
So the takeaways are, work on the semantics on 35 miles an hour, I'll work on the language of that, and I'll, Shane. F is what it is, and then, look at legalities of the helmet law.
That's all
Well,
I.
and I just want to be on record as saying that in our city, we need to focus on having safe places for people, whether they're on an e-scooter or an e-bicycle. On
So,
every
Councilmember,
road.
we don't have time for that. I agree with you, but this is specific to the ordinance, so I hate to catch you up, I'm sorry, but we have a 40-minute presentation coming up. We still have to do that before we get to our business meeting. So thank you, Chief.
Anything else?
I appreciate it.
Any objections? Anyone?
No,
Thank
we're
you.
good, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, the last staff report is a presentation from the Governance Sciences Group, EDBA flash vote for public input polling. So we appreciate their patience. They're on with us remotely, is that
They're
right?
trying to get on right now.
Okay,
You
they're-
haven't seen them yet, right, Matt?
Any reason to get our food while they?
Probably be good.
We can, if, I could ask if they're gonna take, if we need the full 40, if so, then I'm okay with
You
that.
know what, if we don't have a ton of questions, I mean, I experienced the demo, I don't know if it has to take 40
Yeah,
minutes. so.
this is just because there were some other questions that people wanted to ask, so.
I think mostly how you get to
Mhm.
the pool of people
Right.
and how you make it assigned.
You have an email address I can send out.
I've seen them about for a moment.
Call them quick too. Hey, Jason, it's Jared. Are you guys able to get on? Are you there?
So,
So that was weird. Got cut off. Here, Matt, I'll send you their. You on?
Just.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Second.
okay,
Jason,
yeah,
can you hear us?
looks like you're muted, Jason.
Yep, all right. Yep, all right.
Hi, Jason.
This is on. Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you for joining us. So we have had some discussions. I know that you're here to give us a presentation, so if you, do you already have that? Do you need to share a screen, or Matt, or do you have that? Do we have?
I do. I can share the screen if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, will that work, Matt? Okay,
Yeah, you should be good.
yeah,
Yeah.
So thank you for being with us.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the opportunity. I had hoped that Kevin, our co-founder and CEO, could arrive, but he's in transit and flying, and you know how airports go. But my name is Jason Reese. I'm the VP of sales and operations. So I hope to help you out today and walk you through some of the things that kind of make us special. So, and helpful. All right, let me share this here. Okay. All right. Share this real quick. All right. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes,
Excellent, excellent. Give me just
that
30
logo
seconds.
at the bottom looks great.
That's a good one, right? Yeah, only the best, right? Only the best. Well, it's great to see you tonight. Ultimately, we're Flash Vote. We're here to help in a lot of different ways. But first, to set a stage, quickly, if you don't mind, with a simple question: how often do you think public input sentiment that you receive, whether by phone, by email, in social media, the third rail of government communications, or in person, how often do you think that matches the whole community sentiment?
How often?
How often? What do you think? Take a guess.
20%, I was gonna say,
Yeah, I said 6%.
I got 20 and I got 6. This is awesome. 20 and 6. What do you think? Where are we going with?
Well, this is the whole reason we have you on the call, because we're skeptical. So keep going.
Yep, you guys are all well seasoned. So we looked at the first we looked at the first 300 or 400 surveys that we did, and it turns out public input is about 5% of the time it will match what the actual public sentiment is. Yeah. Now, in that same data set, we found that 25% of the time, the public input sentiment is exaggerating public sentiment. So what you're hearing is an exaggeration of public sentiment. We also found that 70% of the time, it actually turned out to be opposite of what the public thought. Now, is anyone surprised at this?
No.
No, right? And that's why we exist. That's why we're here. Now, real quick, I do want to share, I'm kind of giving some foundation here. We later did a case study with the Harvard Kennedy School. And what we did is we basically paired with a group of grad students, and we looked at the difference in the results you receive from a live meeting versus a survey you do on your own, where you share the topic and put it online and just invite people to take it, versus a scientific panel survey, a scientific sample survey. Now, when we did the first in person, and we asked what kind of services are most important to the community, what do we need to add to this community center? You can see here, health and social services and study and meeting event space were the highest answers in a clear answer set. And we usually see a top tier, we see a second group, and then we see the bottom answer choices. Now, what do you think the demographic was age-wise of the in-person event data?
550.
There you go. Age over 60, 81% of that group was over 60. Okay.
That's
So
why
you see a large
I think we're
sway in demographic.
Yeah.
Right. Now, next we looked at a social media survey, which did a regular survey, SurveyMonkey or whatever, threw it up on social media, said, take our, what services should we add to the sports center or to the activity center survey, told them the topic. And the results were almost the same. Study and meeting event space and health and social services were also the top results. Okay, so same results you heard in person, sentiment-wise, were the same you heard from social media. Now, what do you think the demographic was of the social media survey response from an age perspective? 60 higher or lower?
Lower.
Lower. 31% were over 60, to just compare it to that same demographic. Okay, so now we see a big difference between who's taken the survey who's taken the survey online and who showed up in person to give you data. So the last thing we did is we looked at a flash vote scientific panel survey, which our goal is to get you input from regular residents who aren't self-selected to the topic, aren't particularly passionate or interested in the topic, and actually don't even know the topic before they take the survey. And when we did that, we saw 2 or 3 of the answer choices flip. Now suddenly sports was the most important, and study and health social services actually were lower than exercise equipment. So now sports and exercise equipment were the top choices. Kind of interesting. That's where we see that 70% of the time it's the opposite. Now, what do you think the age demographic was of the scientific sample?
Matt, what do you think?
6 months, I don't know.
You tell us. There we go.
The answer is we don't know. The answer actually was 34%. Okay, 34%. So it was almost the same demographic as the social media sample. But why didn't we get the same results? The reason why is because traditional methods of community input are biased. And what that means is when you survey the community and you tell them what the topic is when you're asking for their advice, or you're inviting them to speak in a forum that's recorded or speaking in front of people about a given topic, the format itself invites primarily what's called self-selection. It invites the people who either want an audience and want to kind of strum up a lot of energy and action and passion about a topic and get attention for it, or they're very interested in the topic for one side or the other. And that's kind of creates a core problem. Okay. The core problem, when you look at it from a community standpoint, is you have this bell curve of your community, right? And you have on the end, you have the people, top 10% are like really all about it happening. And then you have your bottom 10% really all about like it not happening. The real question, we have no problem identifying these people. Would you agree? Well, you know these groups?
Yeah.
Yeah. We all know those groups, right? Those are the people you're typically hearing from. Okay. The problem is if you're hearing from that small portion of people on the end, does that mean everybody feels that way or just that small portion? What happens psychologically is you tend to hear those loud voices and you tend to favor them in your decision making. And sometimes you unintentionally feel like that small group is representative of the whole group, when in actuality, it could be opposite, or it could be we don't know. So it always feels like that little group is too much, right? That little group is everybody. That's what it feels like. So what our goal is here is to get you what everybody thinks, what the general public thinks, who don't necessarily know the topic ahead of time and aren't kind of stepping in with an agenda, pushing that agenda. They're just regular people. They're regular residents. Kevin likes to describe government as 1,000 people chipping in $5 for pizza. And it's your job to order the pizza. How do you order pizza for 1,000 people? Can't have a public meeting because that would be just an absolute chaotic mess. Or you'd get the People's Republic of Pepperoni over here, and you get the People for Pineapple Pizza here, and you'll think the only two choices are pineapple or pepperoni, right? You can't order just what you want or what you think because you don't have necessarily, you haven't tapped into what everybody wants. You can't go on social media because that's not representative of everybody. The way to do it is with a scientific sample, to take a random sample of 100 people and look at the percentages of that. And the way statistics work is as soon as you get 100 people, you're at plus or minus 10%. And as soon as you get 400 people, you're actually at plus or minus 5%. So that's our goal. Ultimately, we've developed a method to get you statistically valid community input in 48 hours. It's fast, it's frequent, and it's cost effective. We pioneered scientific panels. In 2013, we were actually a company to first create a scientific survey panel for government. And the way we do that is by inviting residents to join the panel via SMS, via email, maybe even via mail or inserts online, offline, and we give you all the information you need to help promote that panel. And the trick is that we don't tell them the topic. It ideally is something like, do you have 1 minute a month to make Cottonwood Heights a better place? That's it. They can't know the topic. And what you get is you get regular people saying, yeah, I'll sign up. I don't know what it's about, but I'll sign up. And they sign up and then they wait for a survey. And then when the time comes to do a survey, we craft that survey. So they sign up. When they do, they fill out some demographic information, name, address, which allows us to geolocate them on a map that lets you look at that data filtered by districts or by different parts of town or proximity to a project or a location. They answer gender, they answer birth year, which allows us to put in an age demographic and a few other questions. Do you rent? Do you own? Are you a part-time, full-time resident or a non-resident? All those are used as filters to then look at the data.
May I ask a question on, so if you go a
Yeah,
step before that, how do
Yeah.
who do you decide to reach out to give this opportunity?
That is
How do you go about that?
yeah, that is a great question. So the answer is everybody who's in the panel takes every survey. And
No, that's not my-
everybody,
that's not my
everybody,
question. How do you
okay.
decide who you're inviting to be on the panel?
We don't. We invite everyone. Everyone and anyone can join the panel and is asked to. So we work with you to
Saying
promote this panel.
all adults of Cottonwood Heights would be invited.
Potentially, yeah.
So Jason,
yeah, please.
so that kind of is what one of my most important questions of this is as well, is because as you talked about, you know, the few in that diagram. So
Mhm.
isn't it true that more people on those that are in those few are going to be willing to do that versus those in the middle? So how do you, so I realize, and I like it a lot, that you're not telling people topics of it beforehand, but I still think you're still getting the people that are on those edges in that diagram are the ones that are more likely than not to say, yes, I want to participate, right?
Yep. So, yeah, so this question comes up every time. The top questions we get are, how do you know once you put a panel out and say, do you have 1 minute a month to tell us what you think, that all those same passionate people or that extreme group isn't just going to join your panel and take over your panel? Is that fair?
Yes.
So the reality is, in doing over 700 surveys, our data more often than not flips what the perception is being set by those people. Now, those people are invited and welcome to join the panel. The reality is they never do. Those people are typically attracted to environments where they have an audience that feeds them back feedback, or they can socially kind of drive an agenda. Or what happens is when you advertise a topic, the reason you get a whole bunch of responses that are like-minded is because they know the topic and then they share it with their friends. They share it with other people and they try to kind of corrupt your data. When you put it out without a topic, they don't do that ahead of time. They're not going to say, hey, everybody, I might need you, because they might do a survey on this topic. So we all should proactively join this in case. They're not.
So a question I have is, you know, the communications department of our city has, you know, I believe Instagram, Facebook, probably Twitter, and then we have a website that has a homepage that scrolls, and then we have a monthly newsletter. So if those are the 5 vehicles we have to reach out, I mean, is that kind of, you would advertise it for a couple months in those vehicles, which a lot of people don't do social media, they choose not to. So then they would, if they don't get on the website regularly, which it would be interesting to know out of our city, you know, how many people ever visit, and maybe if Beatrice was here, or maybe our city manager can tell us, you know, how many diverse people visit our website or subscribe to any one of the social media. I guess the point I'm trying to make is,
how do we build the panel?
the other thing that I think I need to go on record for, because we have 2 people out of our 5-person council who have joined us, you know, in the last year and a half.
Sure.
But I can tell you, when I started serving 3.5 years ago, I was told that the CH Tomorrow survey that our Community and Economic Development Director and his staff put together, and it had been on
Mhm.
our website for several months. And so over about, and correct me if I'm wrong, over about an 18-month period of time, it
Okay.
was a survey that anyone who wanted to take the survey could take it. It was called CH Tomorrow, okay? So we got
Mhm.
the results of that survey. And
Mhm.
those surveys said that one of their number one things they wanted for our city was walkability. Now, I was told at the time I started serving my term, oh, no, that's not scientific. We need to pay, I believe it was Qualtrics, no, it was Y2 Analytics, $14,000, and we're going to do a scientific survey. And the
Sure.
way they went about scientifically reaching out was through the registered voter list. And I believe it was every 7th person on the registered voter list was invited to take the survey. And they told us, based on their experience, this would yield about 800 people to participate in the survey. I think in the end, they only got shy of 600. Please jump in here, Mike Johnson or the mayor or Sean Newell, if you remember differently. But I was very engrossed in this because I wanted the scientific data just as everybody else on the council wanted it.
Sure.
We went to all of this great length.
Yeah.
And that's what one of the top 2 things that our citizens told us they wanted in
Yeah.
the scientific survey, walkability. So I'm not trying to contradict your presentation,
Yeah.
but I am very interested in how your organization goes about the outreach and who
Yeah.
ends up as the panel that you're describing.
So I've never met a person that said they don't want a walkability city. But if you say, are you willing to make it harder to drive around in your city to create a walkable city, then that is in a completely different story. So I think we're talking a little bit apples and oranges, but yeah, let's keep going. I don't have any problem with her point, but yeah, keep going.
Great, awesome points, and I'm really glad you brought that up because there's a strong differentiation between how we approach our scientific panel surveys and what you're describing, which is a traditional survey that's based strictly off of the voter registration list. What was just described as well is the engineering of how the survey is written plays a huge part in how you receive that data. To answer the first question about how the panel is built, within the first week of kickoff, what we do is give your communications team tested language that we've tested with people over 18 months. We spent the first 18 months of our company doing the hardest thing, which is getting people to sign up and complete surveys on topics that they don't particularly care about. It's the hardest thing in the world to do. Tell us what you think about something that you don't care about, but as a resident, it's technically something we want your input on. Very difficult thing to do. We got language that attracts and has a very high hit rate to getting people to sign up to a panel. So what we do is we work with your communications team, give you this tested language, and you put it out through all those channels, through Facebook, through Twitter, through all the channels you mentioned, through your website, post it everywhere, press release. The customers we have that have over a few thousand people in their panel, they let the local media get a hold of it and even advertise, hey, the city's getting feedback. Everybody answer. And that helps you reach people who are watching local news at night, right? Or reading the paper to get their information, not necessarily digital. So that's what I mean by every channel. Now, after a few weeks to a month, we typically see 100 to 200 people just organically sign up through these channels. We also have access to one of the fanciest political databases in the country. It's kind of creepy how much information is out there, but we have we have SMS numbers for everybody in your town. So as we watch that panel shape up, we then send out batch invites, not every 8th person or anything like that. We send out batch invites to almost everybody that then invites them to join this panel. Now we do that after you promote the panel because we want to make sure that if they Google it to fact check it or are worried about the message at all or think it might be spam, it's backed up by the fact that this is an initiative and you can go to this page on the website, on the city website, see it at the bottom, right? So it's a collaborative effort of us inviting people just through text message to join the panel and using your channels to join it. So think of this as a new engagement channel that you have in addition to all those other channels, but whereas all those other channels are forums in which people can kind of group together and just kind of be like-minded on certain things or argue on certain things. This is a unique channel in the sense that its sole purpose is to get input back from residents, regular residents, on whatever topic comes up. Now, big difference between how we're going to do a survey versus the one you kind of described there. Our surveys are live for 48 hours. We do not leave a survey open for months. What happens when you leave it open for months and don't keep it short and in a short period of time is it just kind of, it starts to get shared. It starts to get duplicates. It's just the data just gets bad. You don't,
We did
surveys
get
just don't.
feedback that there were a lot of unfinished surveys because it went on and on and on and on.
Yeah,
So I really
yeah.
like the idea of shorter surveys. I think that's absolutely important.
Awesome. And I'm happy to share that our average response rate is 57% on every survey that we do. We see 40 to 70% response. So if you have 400, 500 people in a panel, you can expect to get 250, 300 responses every time you do a survey in 48 hours. What this also allows you to do, and our model is a little different, is you have up to 6 surveys to do throughout the year. So these can be surveys on communication strategy, on community priorities, on specific projects, recreation and park projects, on road projects. Every survey is 3 to 5 questions, usually 4 questions or less. We craft the questions with you. So all you have to do is come to us and say, here's what we're trying to solve for. Here's what we're curious about. Here's what we want feedback on. Or we'll come to you proactively and say, let's do a communication survey and ask 4 simple questions. How would you rate the job we're doing in informing you about what's going on at the city? What channels are you currently receiving information from us? What channels would you like to receive information from us? And what would you like to hear from us about? And we give answer choices for them to choose from so that you get percentage data back. And it allows you to be super efficient. You can say, wow, this demographic wants to hear about this topic through this channel, and they're currently using this channel. So let's reach them this way, but advertise it through this channel about this topic. And that's how you can be better engaged. And that's something just simple like communications. So that's our model. Our model is these short surveys to people who don't know the topics at a high hit rate, at a high completion rate. Now the panel also continues to grow. So after every survey that you launch, you get to advertise and promote the results. Everybody who took the survey also gets the results, which is something you don't get with those other surveys that you do with those companies, right? There's this expectation that people are going to take a survey and then go back and find out what the results of that survey were. Like that never happens.
Do you evaluate after you get the responses to make sure it still fits the demographic of the city we're looking for?
Yes. So that we call that equitable panel balancing. So we look at how the panel itself is balanced out, and then we supplement invites to from an SMS perspective to help balance out that panel. So if we see there's more people in this district than in this district, we're going to go to people who live in that area that is underrepresented in the panel and start inviting them with SMS until we get another 10, another 20. And then things start to balance.
We'll be able to see with each survey where it was coming for the, the percentage, however you do it, but we can see where the results are coming from.
Yeah, can I show you? You want to take a look at a survey so you get an idea what this looks like?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to share the screen again.
I'm going to try to keep us to about 6-7 more minutes, Jason. Is that okay?
Sure.
Is that enough time?
Yeah, it should be totally fine. Let me pull up a survey right here and we'll look at just a couple. I have a couple pulled up here. So
Jason,
can
while
you?
you're pulling that up, because
Yeah.
I've seen this demo before, it was really
Please.
important to me when before that over time, this panel does become representative of the demographics of the city because of how they approach building the panel. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. And it's a continual effort to promote the panel. Something also important to mention is that we separate out anybody can take a survey once it's live. So when a survey goes live, you can say, hey, come take our community priority survey, because now it's already live. You can advertise the topic for 2 days because we separate out the data received from people who knew the topic from people who were in the panel before who didn't know the topic. And that's super critical. To show you an example of why that's critical and to even highlight the impact that that has. I'm going to look to a survey that we did for Saugeen Shores, which is a little town in Canada. They love their ice hockey, and they were getting a ton of noise saying, we don't need summer programming. All we need is hockey year round at the center, at the arena. Okay. And they were like, should we do this? I don't know. We're hearing from 40 hockey players saying this is what we need. Maybe it's what we need. And if they put up a hockey survey, they were getting the same data. So we set up a panel and we advertised the panel the same way we do with all customers. And you'll see here, we had 342 people in the panel after about a month. Okay. 342 in the panel. We did an ice rink survey and 233 people responded to the survey. In 2 days, 1,098 additional people found the survey, shared the survey, and took the survey.
And now at that point, when it was live, was there a name for the survey that was called Summer
Yes.
Recreation? What was it called?
Ice rink, ice rinks. Take our survey on ice rinks. So it attracted all of the skaters, basically.
The question for you, if somebody goes on and an invite was shared, does it verify your name and address to make sure they match as a valid participant in that survey?
Yes. So the address is a unique identifier. And we filter all that stuff out. That's part of our technology, is to clean that panel in such a way. And the address does become super critical for things like the filter for locals only, things for the filter for residency, and things for the filters for like wards or districts.
Doesn't what you just said contradict what you said earlier? You said the reason why ours is so scientific is that people don't know what survey they're taking, and you just said you started out with 200 that were willing to take it when they didn't know what it was, but then another 1,000 plus jumped on.
about to
because
get
they
to that
knew-
point.
Yeah, exactly. He's
Yep.
that's-
You're
that data.
reading. I love where your head's at. You're reading my mind. They know the topic and you're collecting their data. Are you out of your mind? Like, it's exactly what you said, the data we didn't want. Our technology separates that data from the people in the panel. So you can actually compare what the people in the panel said from everybody, including those who knew the topic. So this is a perfect example. In the last 12 months, which best describes your household experience with ice hockey? When we look at just our panel, which is blue here, 57% of the people who took and completed the survey did not skate. So that's what you want. You're hearing from people who don't skate about an ice rink. That's fantastic, right? Because half of our community doesn't skate in reality. Or from a representative perspective, 57% don't. Now 36 have. When we look at the people who knew the topic, suddenly now 80% of the people taking your survey skate.
So you know which data to listen to.
Yeah, but how did the result come out? I mean, just because I don't skate, I would want to see skating available. So I guess I'm interested to
Here you go. To your exact point. Only 47% said no, we would not want year-round ice. We had another 15% say maybe, 19% said yes, and 11% said yes and more in the winter months. So not the whole group of non-skaters. Another 10% of the non-skaters said, yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Hey, Jason, if you're not in the city, let's say you're in Holiday, and you fill the survey, it will actually tell you that you cannot fill the survey out. Or
no, they can still take it. Right? But we filter out their data. So you can view their data if you so choose. The goal is to allow everybody to take it and then use filters to look at the data.
How do you stop somebody in a neighbor city from using an address in our city? Is that, you gonna catch that? They're lying about where they live?
It hasn't ever been an issue. I mean, theoretically, somebody could fake their entire identity and put themselves in a flash vote panel to take surveys for the city. Never really been picked up as a statistically significant event. You would need, I mean, think of a panel with 300 people for it to affect the results in a statistical way. You'd need a lot of people faking their address and trying to corrupt surveys when the surveys are also sometimes asking about communication preferences.
Well, we do have 11,000 households, so.
Since he's going down that, I'm just curious, if I looked at my own cul-de-sac, could I click a link, fill it out, then go to my neighbor and just put their name and address and fill it out and then just go around the whole
Cul-de-sac.
Not without, you still need a unique identifier for your email address. So, I mean, if you were to
Okay.
create fake emails for everybody and then manage all those emails
Yeah.
and
Extraneous
Want
data.
To
extraneous
put in
data.
Gmail for
Yeah.
it.
What about surveys from the same household, multiple surveys?
as long as those can be the same from an address with unique emails. But if it's beyond 2 in a household, it gets flagged.
Gotcha.
Okay. And that's a lot. I mean, I love the questions. A lot of that is what we had to figure out in the back end for flagging things. There's a lot of things that get flagged and pulled, and we review things with regards to how the panel shapes up. I'll just scroll down here to kind of the grand finale of this survey, which is kind of like, it's going to cost $36 per resident for us to get a cover and operate, year-round ice. How do you feel about this? Which best describes your level of support? And when you look at just the panel, 20% is against it regardless. So to your point earlier, Counselor, you said, I don't skate, but I would support it. Well, only 20% were against it, even after they knew the cost. 16% said, I'd support it if it got rid of cost. 26% said, I'd support it as long as the cost doesn't change. I'm not against it. I just don't want to pay for something I'm not going to use. 19% said, I'd support it with an increase of 15%. And 13% said, no matter the cost, I'd support it. So a nice spectrum here for you to kind of know what to expect. Now, when we add in the others, this is the kind of data you get when you do the survey on your own. 40%, to scroll to the bottom, 40%, I would support it regardless of the cost. Why did we get a result that said 40%, almost 40% would support it regardless of the cost, and 22% would support it with the cost? It's because 80% of the people taking the survey, once they knew the topic, skate and play hockey. So once they know the topic, it has a massive effect. So this survey is in our greatest hits because it was the most dramatic example.
Oh, that's
of
because with Canadians and hockey. I just went to my first Utah Hockey Club game. And in our little group, there were people that came from Canada that ended up there. So anyway.
Yeah, they love, I mean, there's no denying that they love their hockey. This also goes to show you, though, we advertised a panel. There were 1,200 ice hockey crazy people who wanted to push this initiative, and they didn't sign up for the panel until they knew the topic. Now, some of them might say, I'm going to stay on this panel, and your next survey, we're going to crush it. And the next survey might be about a dog park. And they're like, what is this? Okay, I guess I'll take a survey on a dog park, because now it's about another topic. So that's kind of the goal, is that these short, frequent surveys are about multiple topics, different topics that they don't know what the topic is. And as a result, what you get is sometimes the same, sometimes a different group of people within that panel, always giving you that 40 to 70% response rate and data feedback on whatever it is you're curious about or what you're looking at.
What's the ideal pool number in a city of 35,000?
So what's funny is the number of residents in your community doesn't matter as much as the number of completed survey results. So as soon as we have 100 responses, you're at plus or minus 10% that is representative of what the entire community thinks. Once you're at 384, which I think is a magic kind of statistic number, you're at plus or minus 5%. And then it's kind of diminishing returns from there. You have to get to 1,600 responses to be at 4%, and like 3,600, I think. It goes up by 4. It's like every times 4 is a 1 move. So.
And do you limit the age group? Is there any minimum age to be eligible to participate?
In the panel itself, I believe it can be configured. I want to say it's set to 13, which is just the national kind of rule there. We have done youth surveys where they have targeted a younger crowd, and I think it was 13, but I think it can be set to 18. It's a good question, though. I can follow up with that.
So Jason, we don't have a lot of time. What's your closing argument? Is that a good enough? Closing argument, yeah.
Well, I'll put a quick plug in. I like how they unbiased the question. I mean, you saw what they did. It's, well, how supportive are you given the cost? And so you get to a level of detail in a very short survey that's so informative. Go ahead. That's my. that's my
No,
take.
I mean, to your exact, your-
Closing argument?
please continue. Please
How much?
close
do
it for me.
you-
What you say, at the end of the day, in order to have good data to make better decisions, you want to cover your bases in a few ways. One, you want to craft a survey that is unbiased, to your point, Counselor, right there. You want it unbiased, and you want to make sure the answer choices are right. There's a lot of bad surveys out there. How great are we? Great, awesome, super awesome, fantastic. Not going to help you, right? You also want to design a survey that's not going to be weaponized against you. I've seen people put out surveys that can be like, should we have a water park? Like, of course, everybody wants a water park. That's not going to help. Do you want a safer community? Of course, I want a safer community. Would you like bike lanes? Sure. Would you like bike lanes in substitution of paved roads? No. It turns out, actually, from one of our surveys, bikers preferred potholes and paved roads fixed over bike lanes, which is not what you would think, but that's what they want because they don't want to be restricted where they ride. They want better conditions. So it's how you structure the survey to ask questions that are unbiased, can't be weaponized, and get you percentage data to help you solve the problem. Having them be short and frequent keeps people on their toes, gives you a new engagement channel to make your community kind of thank you and be involved. They're open for 48 hours, which means our turnaround time is literally by the next council meeting. We can flash vote something and get you data on it. Because you have frequent surveys throughout the year, you can uncover something in a survey and do another survey about it. So if you do a survey that shows public safety is a concern, well, what does that mean? Is it lack of street lighting? Is it you're afraid of burglaries and break-ins? Are you afraid of physical assaults? Is it response times for police? Is it interactions with police? What is it specifically? So that you guys just don't go out and buy 3 police cars and think you solved a problem. It wasn't that. It was streetlights. Who knew? So with something like this, you can get indications that can save you a ton of money by avoiding mistakes and scope changes on projects when the community wasn't kind of asked in a representative way. It also gives you a lot of backup when you do have people who are passionate and you want to help them. Squeaky wheels need grease, period. You got to give them grease, right? How do you let them know that you're also looking out for the whole community? And this is a tool to help you do that. Yeah, it's
Jason,
pretty
great.
awesome and it works.
Wow,
Thank
that's
you. This
great.
was very informative. I think this has helped the council a lot. We'll go into further deliberation, but thank you. I really appreciate your time being here and go have a great couple hours of your night. So,
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. Any
Thank
further
you.
questions, you let us know.
thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, review of upcoming events. February 17th is President's Day. City Hall will be closed. February 19th, the Wednesday, is a senior social bingo. We're excited about that. Tell everybody 1:30 here at City Hall. February 25th is our important short-term rental town hall meeting, 6 p.m. here at City Hall. So, question for the council. We have not very much time. We do have an item to discuss in a closed meeting. We're gonna have to come back for that after our business meeting.
Okay.
Are you okay to wait to eat to that point? Do you want to try to eat within the next 6-7 minutes? And,
Oh, how
Are you
will our
okay?
business meeting be? you saying
it's
eat
not
after
very
this
long,
one?
yeah.
Scott's only gonna take half an
Scott
hour.
doesn't take, yeah.
I get paid by the minute.
Hey, that's my job.
Oh, you're right. I forgot.
Yeah.
Money guy?
Maybe there's some small you can snack on real quick to tide you over, if
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
Might switch an hour.
Okay, so with that, we are going to entertain a motion to adjourn our work session. And enter into our business meeting, and then when we adjourn our business meeting, we'll go back into our work session. Does that sound good, Shane?
Sounds very good.
Okay.
I'll make that.
Sounds like you've done this before.
Yeah, second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you.